All right, welcome to another episode of The Void. This is your host, James Boyd, and I am going to be turning on the camera in just a second. TJ is not with us here. We have Facebook Live. All right, so getting some things set up and ready to go. We've got a special show tonight. We have Sean Blackwell, and he's going to tell us about some pretty cool insights that he's got about the world, about everything. We'll see. All right, just a second. There we go. Like I said, we don't have YouTube. You're missing out on Seprock Beats. I mean, you got the intro track playing. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and fade it out, so you're missing out on that. So, again, if you're joining us from Facebook Live, thank you for checking out The Void. But if I were you, I would check that link on YouTube, like and subscribe. There's going to be new shows every Wednesday. We're going to do a live show, hopefully with a guest, on Wednesdays. And Sundays, we have the sort of shorter Sunday sesh. And that is, a lot of times, that's a recap of what we did on Wednesday. So Sunday was, I don't remember what we even talked about Sunday. But tonight, a real special treat. I got Sean Blackwell. I've been actually wanting to have him on the show for a while. Let me move this exhaust manifold here.
No, it's all good, bro. I think it's
yeah, it adds to the ambiance.
Yeah, it's a nice
there you go.
Rest.
Right. Okay. So yeah. So let's go ahead and just jump into it. Sean, thank you for joining the show. Oh. I really appreciate it. I know I'm basically in a garage with a camera. It's not much of a studio, but right. And there's no AC. And some of you guys might hear a fan blowing in the background. That's just because we're dying of heat stroke in here. But actually, he's doing real well. I'm sweating all over the place. So. But yeah, Sean, so why don't you, I sort of tell my guests, tell us a little bit about yourself. You know, start at the beginning and tell us till now.
All right. Just a country boy from Pensacola, Florida. Joined the military at a young age. Got to see the world.
What branch?
I was in the Army.
Army, okay.
Yeah. And got out of the military. Saw that there was a bigger, better world out there, and I wanted to start a family, so that's what I did.
How long were you in the military?
8.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And spent 2.5 years in Korea. Got to see that there was a bigger world than Pensacola, Florida.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. And it kind of opened my eyes to a lot of things. Expanded my cultural boundaries for sure. And just I learned a lot about myself and who I really was and the way I really wanted to perceive the world. That's why I did stay in for life, because you know the military is an institution and they try to institutionalize your thought process. And anybody who's honest with themselves that have been in the military will tell you that.
I think, yeah, there's some points that I'd like to talk to you about regarding the military, but yeah, go ahead and continue and tell us.
Okay, well,
what else?
Yeah, well, I guess to the big piece of the story. When I was in Iraq, 2003, I actually met my current wife, who was an Iraqi national, and that kind of made some headlines at the time.
When was this?
2003.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you describe sort of your perception of? Well, let's back up. Go ahead and tell us the timeline, and then we'll dive deeper in some of these.
So 2003, the invasion of Iraq happens. I get to Baghdad. I'm there maybe 3 weeks, and I meet my current wife. I just started as a friendship. Next thing you know, 3 months later, we're getting married. And, you know, got out of the military again, because I was actually called back to active duty for the invasion for the National Guard here. Then lived in Jordan for 6 months with my bride at the time. I got to see what the Middle East was about as a civilian, not just as an occupier and invading force on the streets. And once again, you know, expanded my my view of the world and the misperceptions and the misconceptions that a lot of Western folks have about that region in general. And it kind of influenced me to go back to school and study, you know, history and politics. And I concentrated on the Middle East region for my undergrad. So, and here we are, married 15 years next month. So.
Wow, that's amazing, man. And so you brought up a couple things. I really want to focus. Not necessarily. I want to focus on a few things. One of them, you mentioned sort of the mindset or mentality that you have to adopt or are sort of that gets conjured up from the military. If you could expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, well, it's always this, you know, America first. America's the best at everything. And, you know, I'm not saying we're not. We, you know, economically, we obviously have the largest, you know, economy in the world, the biggest, most powerful military in the world. And they kind of try to instill that in you to make you feel like everything you do is justified because you're part of this great organization. Well, like I said, any service member who's honest with themselves can see that that's not always the case. Like I got frustrated, you know, with these deployments we would take, and I was like, why aren't we in Africa? You know, why aren't we going to Africa? That's where people need this large of an institution to be helping. Why aren't we in this country? And then I just, you know, started to figure out that the military is used to promote the economic advantages that the U.S. can take. It has nothing to do with humanitarian relief or stopping civil wars. Yeah, it's just about pushing the agenda for, you know, the politicians.
Well, you know, General Smedley Butler, right, says that war is a racket, that he spent his life fighting basically for the banksters and for corporations.
Yeah. I mean, in the defense industry, if you're in a mutual fund, say, because we were both finance guys, if you're in a mutual fund, defense, a heavy defense contracted or defense company fund, that's the place to be. I mean, especially in tumultuous times around the world, because who gets all the contracts? You know, so I mean, yeah, it's a racket for sure. I mean,
and talk about a strange socialism that really is happening, because you're taking collective taxes and you're funneling it into a capitalist institution whose prime motive is profit.
Yep.
So who's to say how much of that money is just going to the profiteers and how much is actually going to R&D to actually completing. I mean, what's their incentive to actually finish something like F-35? What's their incentive if they can cost plus it? What's their incentive to, and plus the senators and congressmen get jobs allocated to their districts if they can secure those contracts in those districts. So it's like the worst of both worlds of capitalism and socialism all rolled into one. And but yet the American people seem to have no problem with that. And if you, what is your take on that? And I think it goes back to what you said about the America First, the putting on the pedestal. But go ahead and what's your perception?
My perception is because it's spun to the American people that everything that the military does, every contract that's spent for defense is necessary to the survival of this great nation that you live in. You have the privilege to be in. And so once it gets spun to you that way, and it's been told to you time and time again, and then they'll try and connect it back, founding fathers of the nation, and this is what they would have wanted, you know. So it really just gets at the heart.
As if they were in the mines and they could go back hundreds of years to figure this out.
And like,
and I'm sure they've done all.
The founding fathers would have wanted us to have the largest defense budget in the world that, you know, is very seldom used for our actual defense.
Right.
We're more of an offensive nation as far as military goes.
Yeah, you know, I was talking to a neighbor of mine who spent time in Vietnam, and he spent decent. I mean, I don't know exactly how long it was, maybe like 6 to 10 years in the military, and then he went on to work for the IRS for like 25 years or something. So very familiar with governmental stuff and the military, and he's also. I think he had undergrad studies or something in military history. I was trying to get him to come on the podcast, and we'll see if I get him to. But you know, we were talking about American interventions around the world, and I mentioned something that sort of caught him off guard, and basically that we spent World War II fighting off. Supposedly fighting off a dictatorship and fascism, only to introduce fascism to the world. Yeah. Right. And he's like, whoa, what do you mean? Like, well, all of South America, we took away democratically elected people and put in fascist dictators because it would be more amenable to our corporations. And then going to the Middle East, same thing. And whatever wasn't already colonialized and owned to a large degree in Africa, we went and did the same thing, or colluded with France and Britain, and to ensure these things. And the thing that I think that sickens me the most is, you hear all these people. If you dare critique what's happening in America and say, you know what, we could do better than this. We can make this nation greater than what we're doing. We're slipping. Then they'll say, whoa, look around. You could go to one of these other countries. You ever been in one of these other shithole countries? I'm like, well, wait a minute. Hold on. Maybe if we let them have their own elections and actually brought them democracy and let them manage their resources and people in a manner that would help them, maybe it wouldn't be such a shithole. Right. But no, we have to arm, crazy factions, destabilize it because it's easier to take control of a population. All of these things, and did you get to witness some of this firsthand?
Well, I would say absolutely. To that question, I mean, that was the reason for going, right? Was weapons of mass destruction.
That was the premise, right?
Right, for Iraq. Now, to this day, just to get off topic a little bit, to this day, I still know people in my family that think we went to Iraq because they attacked us on 9/11.
Wow.
And see, that is just the disconnect that Americans in general have, especially middle America. The same people that will vote against their own best interest every time, economically, socially. Those are the same people that will back up these misuses of our military might. But yes, Saddam was supposed to be this bad guy, and he was. Let's not, twist it. But he wasn't as a defense.
I don't know the history, and you know, obviously, the history of the Middle East. What was happening before Saddam?
Well, before Saddam, it was kind of like a lame duck leader. Saddam was basically running the country.
Through military power?
Well,
or was he like a general or something?
No, he was never in the military. He actually ran their secret police.
Okay.
And so that's kind of how he came to power. He just started using conspiracies to have other leaders taken out, having leaders tell on another leader saying, hey, he's trying to overthrow this guy or that guy. And then that was the culture he started to build there. It was a culture of fear. Neighbors telling on neighbors, things of that nature.
What in that kind of culture, what stops someone from double crossing him?
That same fear.
Mm-hmm.
That
how can someone wield that kind of power of fear from over such probably dangerous and powerful people?
Well, how do they do it? I would say it's kind of ingrained in that culture. It's like the strong man in that culture is revered, right? Especially Saddam. His whole story of growing up as an orphan on the streets of Tikrit, no real family structure, coming from being an orphan to taking over the country. He no matter how much they feared him and despised what he was doing to them as people, they still revered and respected him. So that's the kind of that's the type of thing we would never understand in this country, and it's just because it's not our culture.
Well, I think the come up story, I guess, in a way, is important to some, I guess. But I mean, it depends. It really depends.
Well, you could go back to Japan and say the same thing about the emperor.
Yeah.
Why did they think he was God on earth?
Well, right, like a deity, literally.
Exactly. Right? So I mean, it's that same thing. Whenever you have him just starting to integrate himself in every aspect of your life, you begin to fear that, right? Because this guy is watching me all the time. How am I gonna? Any kind of uprising, he would snuff out. I mean, if he was willing to kill his own son, Uday,
yeah,
to keep him from taking too much power, what would he do to an average, ordinary Iraqi citizen? But he's not the only leader like that in the world. And let's be honest, we actually liked Saddam.
Well, for a while.
Yeah, for a while. Yeah, I mean, only because he was the guy keeping, Islamofascism from invading the Arab world, right? He fought our war against Iran.
Well, before that, though, I mean, in a way, we were helping motivate Islamofascism through the Mujahideen in the 80s, right? Through the proxy with Russia. Yeah. And even then, the Mujahideen was run by, what's his name? Bin Laden. Yeah. And so we were actually allied with Bin Laden, fed them weapons, and they later became Al Qaeda.
Exactly.
Right. And so
you can go further back.
Yeah.
Say the partition of India, Pakistan was a Western ally because they were at least a monotheistic based religious country. So we knew that communism wouldn't take hold in a Muslim country. So Pakistan was a Western ally. India actually was not. They sided with the Soviets. So, you can go back, and I guess it's basically the whole thing about communism is where we're at today, except it's supposed to be stopping dictatorial fascist leaders. But like you said, we've introduced that fascism, and now how do you turn it back? Now we've proven that, if you side with us, we don't care what you do to your people, as long as you serve our interests.
Right.
You can stay in power.
And doesn't the rest of the world see that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's part of why the U.S. has such little respect around the world by the civilian populations. Now, obviously, we have great alliances with governments because, it's a quid pro quo, But yeah, I mean, around the world, America is not, well, in the Middle East particularly, America is seen for what you and I possibly see it for.
Right.
Is just an interventionist nation, a modern colonialist country.
Yeah.
Going in and
there's an analogy I've used, and it's sort of in some ways reminiscent to something. What's his name? God, I can't remember his name. Used to be on Saturday Night Live, but later became a congressperson.
Al Franken.
Al Franken. He said something about, you know, like Republicans or so conservatives or something loving America like a child, and you know, liberals loving them like an adult. And I want to switch it up. I switched it up to a different analogy that it's really we really are all adults. It's just, what adult are we? So if it's like the son or daughter of a mafia boss. Are you gonna, when you grow up and you're 35 and you've seen the world and you find out your dad has killed all these people through your childhood and that's where they disappeared to?
Right.
Are you gonna, or which grown up are you gonna be? Are you gonna be the, heck yeah, Pops knocked off all these people, that's why I get discounts.
Right.
And then when I walk around, I get respect. Or am I gonna be like, I can't believe my father would do that.
Right.
I can't believe that I'm part of a family of people that would do those kinds of things. I would vow that from now on, my name is not associated with that action.
Right.
But who do we choose to be?
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's not that all of us are one way or another, but when you choose to overlook the realities of what's happening, and it's not, and people always put it on themselves. I don't know if it's because they're just like put it on themselves, like, well, I'm not responsible. I didn't do it, and so why are you trying to blame me? And and you hate America. I'm like, okay, I can still love my mafia dad and not condone him killing the bodega owners, right? Or killing the vacuum cleaner sales guy, or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. To your point, I think I'm the same way. I love America because I know what it has been, what it can be. But right now, I know that it's not what it should be, right? So it's just back to Al Franken's analogy. You know, if you have a child and you see potential in them, but you see them screwing up, you're going to try to discipline them and get them back onto that right path. So it should be the same way with your nation, like you're saying. And, you know, just there's too many people that, like you said, like that strong man mentality. Hey, we're the greatest in the world. They're not willing to accept that maybe we aren't doing everything so great, because then that would come into question their patriotism. I would say it's quite the opposite. I'd say you're no patriot at all if you just go along and let your country continue to, you know, lose its standing in the world. And you know,
well, it's like, well, one question that's been rolling around in my mind that I really want to get a public consensus about is, what is our nation? When you say the nation, I care about the nation, or I love America, the nation, or whatever, the country. What is it? Is it the soil? Is it the economy? Is it the people? You know what I mean? And there's a subset.
It's an identity, I think.
There's a subset of Americans that would probably say that the most patriotic thing in America is the military. You know, because there's, and you tell me what your perception is, as far as, I feel like there's a fetishization of the military.
Absolutely. And you can see that through the video game culture, everything, shooter games, everything. No, we really do.
Well, I mean, Coca-Cola has a limited edition camouflage can
Budweiser,
to honor the military, right?
Budweiser has a new brew out that's, you know, made by veterans, you know, and that's all great. But
I mean, isn't that sort of taking advantage of something that what is it? What is it that's creating this sort of ethos where it's a dichotomy between, I feel like there's these folks that idealize the soldier as a stoic fighter for freedom.
Yeah.
That does it without, they're out on the ledge looking over the, you know, for the border to make sure that the vigilance will keep us strong and steady. And they don't even want any thanks for it. They do it for their love of the country.
Right.
They do it for you.
Yeah.
And then if you don't thank and honor and grovel to the military, then you're not a fucking patriot, asshole.
Yeah. And I
don't know what I mean? If you don't buy the fucking Coca-Cola limited edition camouflage can with a veteran name on it, then who the fuck are you, Al-Qaeda?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's sort of what I think a lot of that's perpetuated by the government.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
there's a lot of soldiers like me. Like I don't know. I feel it's very inappropriate whenever people find out that I was a vet, or I am a veteran, and they're like, "Oh, well, thank you for your service." I'm just like, why?
You know what's weird?
That annoys the shit out of me.
When I don't say that, people look at me like I'm offensive.
See,
but I say that to teachers.
Exactly, because
not that I come from a military family.
Yeah.
I appreciate the military, but I don't want to create a fetish over the military because it's important.
Yeah.
The military is important, but and here's why there's actually an argument. I was telling you about my neighbor who's been through Vietnam. I think he was drafted, or he might not have been. Anyway, either way, but his dad was a 40-year vet in I think the Army, and he was saying there's an argument to have the draft. There's an argument for the draft. I'm like, what? You crazy? He's like, think about this. When you make your living off the military, who's your allegiance to? Is it truly to the Constitution, or is it to your command?
It's your command.
Is it to the Constitution, or is it to your compensation?
Yeah. Because
you want to lose your livelihood and your benefits, and how about your dependents, all your kids and your wife or husband or whatever? Am I going to not do this unconstitutional act? Am I going to, participate in an unconstitutional war?
Right.
And will you really stand up if that means losing your job and losing your money?
Yeah.
And now if you draft, and plus, here's the thing. If you go do a bunch of shitty stuff, are you going to come back and say, man, I did a whole bunch of shitty stuff, and I feel like pretty fine because I'm American.
Right.
You're probably going to internalize it.
Yep.
You don't want to admit that you and your brothers, who you bonded with, and they're literally your brothers now, went and did fucked up shit to people just trying to live. I'm assuming. You tell me what's your, if you could describe the Middle East, Iraq. I mean, obviously you fell in love and married.
Yeah.
Someone from a whole other culture, a whole other place, and to so many people that would be such a foreign mind concept.
Well, that's because those people never want to leave the safety of their beloved nation, right? Mm-hmm. They don't want to go and I mean, I sit at work. I sit next to a kid that I try to talk to him about, travel, and he's like, no, I just don't have any desire to go anywhere else. This is the greatest place on earth. Why would I want to go anywhere else?
How does he know?
Exactly. That's my point. So I didn't know until I went overseas, and then I fell in love with Korea. It's the first time I've ever been overseas. Just immersed myself in the culture. Same thing happened when I went to the Middle East, because I had a realization that the world is bigger than what we call the United States of America.
Mm-hmm.
So why can't we embrace every country for its own culture, its own belief systems? Now, whether I agree with the belief systems or not, that's a totally different subject.
Sure.
But when I was in the Middle East, nothing but, great people. I mean, people will go out of their way to help us. They bring us water. They bring us food on the streets. And we're the occupied force in their country. We're kicking their doors in at 1, 2 in the morning just looking for weapons. Okay. Now, whether those weapons were going to be used against us, we don't know. Whether they were just keeping those weapons for their own protection of their family.
Right, because supposedly there are like other forces, terrorist forces.
Exactly. Like when we were there for the first year, it was really just more like gangs, right? Yeah. Okay, now it's a free-for-all. So we were just trying to take as many guns off the street as possible, which for our own self-preservation, that made sense. But whenever I started to look at it from the perspective of the people, it did not make sense.
What if a country came in and started taking our guns?
Well, that wouldn't hurt my feelings. Well, another country doing it would be an issue, right?
Well, but what if the government? What if they did? I mean,
you see what happens.
Trump even said, "Why don't we take the guns and we'll look at the legality later?" He even said that.
Right. Well,
of course,
the NRA got hold of him.
All of his. Well, they had him already, but he just says stupid shit all the time. Yeah. Right, and he's trying to think like, well, what? He just mouth diarrhea, shit out. Like, well, I got a solution. Why don't we just grab them now and we'll just figure it out in the wash?
Yeah, like you did with
don't do
like the separation of kids on the border. Well, we'll just separate them now, and then we'll figure out how to get them back.
Right, and now they're lost.
Exactly.
You know, and
but
and then they're like, well, it was Obama, and then Jeff Sessions goes on there and says on TV and says, well, you know, we're just trying to make sure that we're making a deterrent.
Yeah.
You know, because when they get their kids ripped from them, they're going to tell their friends in Guatemala, hey, don't be bringing no children. Don't be coming here to our border. We're going to take your children.
Yeah.
Is that worth it? Nah. Just let them die. We're in Guatemala.
Even though
let the boy join the gang. Yeah. It's okay. He's still going to be, at least you'll know where he is. Like, we're going to take him and put him in foster. They could be in child sex trafficking. I don't give a fuck.
And all they're doing is...
Oh, and then they'll say, well, it was Obama that started it.
Yeah.
Oh, we never did this. This never happened. It's fake news. Like, literally, all three of those things came out of this administration's mouth.
Yeah.
And there are still supporters of this administration.
Yeah.
And so, to me, at this point, I've been seeing, so, like, I don't know if you heard lately, just the other day, Mitch McConnell got heckled out of a restaurant. All the way to his car, you know. They're like, "Where's the kids? Where's the kids?" And they're like chanting, "Vote
outside of his house in
DC." And they followed him and his two love buddies, who are probably trying to grease his skids to get some shit done, and for someone other than the American people, right. And there's people on these, you know, replying to this video and commenting and saying, "Oh, you know, we really shouldn't be doing this. It's a bad precedent," and And I'm like, nah, dial it up. In fact, Trump supporters should be publicly shamed in public.
Absolutely.
Like, I mean, I'm not publicly shamed in public. I mean, just publicly shamed.
Yeah.
And if it starts escalating, so be it. Rip the Band-Aid. I don't care. Yeah. Because at that point, the good conservatives, if there's such a damn thing, conservatives, if there's such a fucking thing as a good conservative or a good right-winger, why don't you rein in these idiot Trump fans? Because it's one thing to have been duped by a con man. It's another to continue to get conned at the price of the American people, and the price of our integrity and morality. And I think there's a religious fervor at this point. It's like it's beyond reasoning with a lot of folks that are this deep now, that are still this deep. There's a lot of conservatives like, yeah, this isn't how it's supposed to boil down.
Yeah.
But they're very quiet because they're so tribalized that they don't even want to possibly think that they could be close to the caricature of what a liberal is, that has been concocted by the, you know, it's like,
I don't even understand what is so bad about, you know, caring about all human life. All, you know, natural rights for all people.
Sure.
Why is that such a bad thing? You know, but like you said, to those right wingers, that's a sign of weakness. You have empathy. You have compassion. Why is that a weak thing?
Those are a sign of humanity.
Exactly. Right. And that's what I say. The problem is in America.
A lot of them are psychopathic.
Yeah.
A little bit.
That's for sure.
On the spectrum.
And that gets me back to what you were talking about earlier. Why do we revere the military so much? Why do we put every soldier on a pedestal? When a lot of those soldiers, I'll take that back. I knew some soldiers that their whole purpose of joining was to hopefully go to war, to hopefully be able to legally put a human being in the sights and pull the trigger. And to me, that's psychopathic behavior.
Yeah, sure.
But those are the people we put on pedestals.
Yeah.
And they're not doing it for the greater good of the country or the people. They're doing it for their own sick satisfaction, you know, and they're getting paid to do it. You know, that's their hope.
Have you heard the, you know, the critiques of that Chris Kyle? Or who is that guy?
Yeah.
Do you know anything about that? And have any perspective on that?
I've read quite a few articles about it, and all of the legitimate sources that I've read, even Jesse Ventura himself came out, and, you know, he sued the Kyle.
Oh, really?
Yeah, family afterwards for defamation. It cost him jobs.
Wait, what happened?
Chris Kyle had written in his book that, you know, Jesse Ventura was, you know, over in California at a SEAL graduation. You know, because
Okay.
Jesse Ventura was a SEAL,
Mm-hmm.
so it's a tradition for the SEALs to come back, and I think it's every 10th graduate or something like that. But every so many number of classes that graduate after yours, you come back and you celebrate. So apparently, Ventura and some of his old SEAL buddies were in the same bar as Kyle and some of his, and Kyle elaborated on this story that he, Jesse Ventura had made some comment about, they deserve to die or something because he was in there. Kyle was in this bar with his friends, mourning the loss of a compatriot supposedly. And then so Chris Kyle wound up decking him and knocking him to the floor. Well, that never happened.
Oh, okay.
By several witnesses and Jesse Ventura himself. But when that came out, MSNBC was going to give Jesse Ventura his own show. They'd already signed a contract, but then they reneged on it. So he sued the Kyle.
Because supposedly
of that.
Yeah.
It's costing him jobs.
Right.
Nobody wanted to put this guy who's defaming dead SEALs, Yet that was the whole fabricated story in the book. Just like the movie was way, beyond fabricated.
Right.
But everything I've read, other than those that actually served with Chris Kyle, and they basically back up what Ventura says. He's just a braggadocious blowhard that's going to over-exaggerate everything to make himself look like this super machismo,
And then didn't he get killed by a buddy of his?
Well, it was
going to a firing range.
Well, it wasn't a buddy.
Like
it was just a
it was
just a Marine that came back and was struggling with PTSD, and they went. He took him out shooting, which that's the answer in America. If you're depressed, just let's go out and shoot some guns. That'll make you feel better. Well, apparently he wasn't feeling so great. So. I mean, it's sad that anybody dies, even if it's, Chris Kyle. I don't know the guy or didn't know the guy personally, so I don't want to speak too harshly of him. I can only speak for what I've read and, confirm that the sources that I trust, and Ventura himself, didn't shine a really great light on him as a person. But.
Hey, folks, there's not anyone on Facebook Live. Looks like we have a couple people watching on YouTube. Put a comment in there. Ask Sean if you have a question about Iraq or something you'd want me to expand on a little bit, or Sean to expand on a little bit, really. Type something in the commentary. This show is nothing without you guys throwing some comments in. If you end up watching this on the archives, put a comment in. I do go back and check those comments and incorporate them into the next shows and cover those things. So what about, Sean, let me ask you about, you hear people say and justify our actions in the Middle East because it was such a shithole, or the culture was so shithole that we should go in there and kill them or something like that. Or handle their leaders or whatever, and things like that. What say you about these folks?
Well, first of all, I'd say they definitely need to study their world history.
But they won't.
They won't. But that would be my first recommendation to them, because this is the culture that's brought you algebra, astrology, some of the greatest poetic works. I mean, this is a deep culture, a very ancient and deep culture.
Beyond anything Americans can fathom in our baby culture.
Exactly.
They don't realize how much of a baby culture.
Our existence is a fraction in time compared to Middle Eastern culture, Far East culture.
Yes, right.
So for us to think that we have got it all figured out culturally, it is just completely not even justified. We're far behind the rest of the world in culture. I would say we don't even have a true culture. I mean, a lot of people, when you go overseas, they think American culture is cheeseburgers,
and commercials.
Exactly.
Basically.
Yeah.
And it sort of is. Really, what is our culture? Right now, I would almost say our culture is max exploitation. That's that's the neoliberal culture that we have ever since Reagan. Basically, we've been going further and further into commodifying everything.
Exactly. And that's what's led us to this, like you and I were talking the other night, about this new like reverse fascism where, you know, corporations no longer do the bidding of our government. It's our government that does the bidding of the corporations, as you said, right? And we call that corporate fascism. You know, and that mentality is what's gotten us to this point, and to allow somebody like Trump to be elected because, oh, he represents that.
Right.
You know, he's a strong guy. He's going to say what he thinks. No matter the repercussions, he's going to go in there and he's just going to tear down all the institutions that we hate so much. Yet they don't even know why they hate the institutions, most of the people that voted for him. They just didn't want to see Hillary Rodham Clinton. Well, I didn't either. But given the two, and I'm going to vote, I'm going to make the...
What about the revelations of the DNC collusion against Bernie Sanders in primaries?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That was one of the reasons that I would have not, you know, cast my vote for Hillary had there been another, you know, Republican candidate, you know,
or even a Republican, possibly. Yeah, another Republican candidate.
Had Mitt Romney or Kasich from Ohio, I would have absolutely cast a vote for one of them. I'm not so partisan where I would, you know, set aside my integrity, you know, to vote strictly down my party line.
Right.
It's about who I think is going to be best for the country. And, you know, given all of her,
you know, tell me, like in your interactions with people, how prevalent do you think that philosophy is?
Oh, very.
Really? You think people will break party line?
Oh, no, that philosophy?
Yeah.
No, I thought you were talking about the other. No. I don't think that's very prevalent at all.
Mm-hmm.
No, people are so stuck on the fact that they will never vote Democrat because they don't want to be seen as weak.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, hey, let's be honest. The Democratic Party has definitely moved much more.
Well, they've become corporate shills.
Exactly. So they're just like,
I think it was
the
Clinton administration after the Gore loss. It was like, and probably Gore sold out. I'm sure Gore sold out big time anyway. Just like any other Republican or just like any other politician.
Exactly.
And Bill Clinton was like sort of the new poster child of sellout for the Democrats. And then Obama was just a smooth jazz version.
Mm-hmm.
Or not even smooth jazz. It was almost like a Ralph Tresvant version of the same shit.
Yeah.
And you know, and we eat it up, or we as the culture or society, American culture gets played so well to create this sort of dichotomy of this or that.
Right.
I'm sort of blaming on Black Sheep. You know, if they hadn't come out with that song, this or that, in the 90s, maybe we wouldn't be so bipolar or whatever with our thought process.
Well, I would say I blame it on Black Sheep, but, you know, it's definitely become
Justice Camp.
Yeah, too much of an issue. And, you know, there's a lot of things that President Obama did that, you know, I won't agree with. I mean, he was much more hawkish than I wanted him to be as far as, you know, war and military intervention.
Right. Especially the drone wars.
Exactly. I mean, that just takes the soldier away from it. So now they don't even have to internalize what they've done. It's just
and the thing is, like bombing a marketplace. Yeah. Children as collateral damage.
Exactly. And
then getting Nobel Peace Prize before all of that.
Yeah. Right. Yes, but I will give him an out, and maybe you'll agree or maybe you won't. Him being the first African-American president, I really think he was handcuffed to do, maybe because of all of the great things that he did as a community organizer, what he did as a state senator, and even in the Senate. I think once you get into that position and you are the first African-American and you are trying to do your damnedest not to allow this country to fall into chaos, because let's be honest, after this last election, we know that there's about 40% people out there that would love to see a race war.
I don't 40%.
Okay, well, let's say 30%.
You think 30%? I think that literally want a race war. I would say that's a pretty small. I think there's a lot of racists. And
absolutely.
You know, there's an argument that I saw made.
No, you're good. Bro. I'm just trying to.
Let's give you some space.
I just wanted that for an arm wrestler.
Yeah. Here, I got metal shavings. I do actual work in this shop, so Shop Studios. It's not just a gimmick, and it's actually dirty.
You're all good, man. Don't worry about it. I'm gonna take a shot.
Metal shavings here because I was grinding something. Anyway, I should have cleaned it. What was I gonna say? I don't remember exactly, but
you're talking about. We're talking about the race war. I say 30 to 40%. Okay, you say that there's probably that many racists out there. I would say that it's probably closer to 50% as far as
being racist.
Racist. That's just me. But I'm not as optimistic, I suppose.
Well, you know,
but maybe it's because where I grew up that it was much more prevalent.
I just, I'm trying to be optimistic about it. But there's an argument to be made that if you're white in America, you've been raised through the lens of white supremacy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, and to some, and people will be like, "What? That's bullshit." As if that makes them racist. It doesn't make them racist. It makes them biased towards. I mean, here's the thing: where do you build your core values? Where do they come from typically?
Your parents.
From your parents, and you adopt them during childhood typically. And a question that I like to ask people is, do you believe that rules and laws change hearts and minds?
Well, absolutely.
Well, do they? Let's say, for instance, there's a new law that says guns are banned. Do you think the hearts and minds of Americans would say, you know what? Yeah, you're right. I don't need guns.
Oh, no.
No. So rules and laws don't change hearts and minds necessarily.
When we're talking about in a race issue, I think.
Well, so desegregation, does it change the people's thoughts of black people or Hispanic people or
not overnight,
white people?
But it does bring about certain change because it does start to sway a small percentage. Like we could see with the civil rights movement.
Well, in order to make that happen, right? And this was, I mean, I think, Martin Luther King.
Well, I guess that preceded the law and the rule changes.
The need, he saw the need of allying, and even Frederick Douglass saw the need to ally with the oppressor, not the oppressor, but the forces that were from that group. So white people that are sympathetic to the cause we need more of them.
Yeah.
And and of course Frederick Douglass is very a genius, right, and very eloquent, was able to posit these concepts to the point where he could actually convince white people, like, damn, you're right. These guys are humans.
Right.
Holy shit. Right. And then mind fuck. Right.
Right.
And so, but at the same time, that ends up motivating laws, because you get to a point where you can convince those in power that if you don't make these changes, that they won't get in power again.
Right.
Number one, but then number two, for those that don't go along, the fact that you now made an integrated school and an integrated pool and an integrated anything, right, doesn't mean that their hearts and minds change. When they go home and they talk about, when they talk to little Timmy when he comes home, and he's like, were you over there? Hey, you have to be in the class with them damn niggers and da da da.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
I
get what you're saying.
And so, where, just because the law changed, hearts and minds don't change. And you're around your racist uncle. You're around your racist dad. You're around your racist grandma. You're around these people, and that is normalized to you.
Yeah.
Right. And so, even if you don't feel you're racist today, and I got plenty of black friends and yeah. Just to prove it, I listen to Drake, I love it,
Okay.
That's great. And I'm not saying, and obviously you're not racist. That's great. And I want to embrace that.
You're not racist,
but there's a view that most, not all, but a majority, because of the history of our country, that we have to face. When you find out at 35 that your dad killed all the people in your neighborhood that you loved, and they just disappeared. They didn't go on vacation forever. They just died because your dad killed them. You have to face the reality of the history of your father.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like Luke finding out it's Darth Vader's his dad. No!
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. Okay, but now let's figure this shit out. He still loves his dad, but I still got to fight him.
Right.
Because this isn't right.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, and that's another argument. I mean, there's also theories about Star Wars itself being a critique of imperialism, and that the rebel army or the rebellion is a fight against the fascist dictatorship that's the imperial, that's taking over the universe, basically. Which, if you really think about it, who's doing that?
Yeah.
And you know what I mean?
US,
And why? And the other question becomes, why aren't more people inspired to become part of the rebellion, to fight against an imperial army? Instead, we have so many people that would raise their hand to be stormtroopers.
It's a good question. I don't know if I could answer. Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, why not? And I think it goes back to what we were speaking of earlier, because they have such reverence for the idea of America, or what they have built up in their mind, that they don't want to see that go away. Yet, here's the hypocrisy of it. All of those ideas that they see as America were the institutions that were in place. Okay, those institutions that they hated so much that they voted for Donald Trump. So I just don't see why people don't see that kind of hypocrisy.
Well, I think there's a definitional problem somewhere along the line as to what our nation really is.
Well, that's what I said. To me, it's just I identify as
what
American.
It should be. So we look at the Constitution, the interpretation, and half the time the folks that I'm talking to have not actually read the Constitution. For instance, there was someone basically bad-mouthing everything the government does, this and that, and whatever. I'm like, dude, we are the government. We're supposed to be the government. If those people aren't us and aren't representing us, then vote them the fuck out.
Yeah, but that's the thing. They'll just keep voting.
No, they'll just keep putting the same shit because of whatever tribalism they're sold on.
They're anti-abortion.
Right, or whatever. It doesn't matter. I think it's more like they think if I'm not pro-Trump, or if I'm not quote unquote identified, and of course, this is the other irony. If they don't identify as conservative or Republican, then they're nothing more than a dirty liberal that's thinking about identity politics. Yeah, which is basically they're pushing their own identity politics, and they don't want to go against their identity.
Right, but they'll call out liberals for, oh, you're just using identity politics.
And so, and so in their what do you call it? Their fictitious windmill of an enemy. They think of pussy hat wearing, non-gender specific, dancing, like jazz hands, communists running around trying to take everyone's guns and go popping, having abortion pills all over the place. You know what I mean? Right. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, and so I've been trying to unify, quote unquote, the left and anybody that has any fucking sense from the quote unquote right. Because here's the thing. There's what is it? Jefferson, I think, said something about, like, if you give the public the opportunity to vote the law, I don't bastardize it, but basically the opportunity to the largesse of the treasury, that they will vote that constantly, right? And I don't agree. How many Republicans or conservatives are willing to squeeze their own noose in the call for to be fiscally responsible? Well, plenty, I think. They'll say, "Oh no, we shouldn't spend that. The government shouldn't spend that. Not on my taxes." Da da da. We need that. Yeah. We need that, but we need the mindset of how do we look at the governmental balance sheet and make sure it's on point. We need that, because you're right. There are some idiots out there who'll be like, "Well, fuck it. We'll just tax the rich till they die, and we'll just fucking live high." And like, yeah, there's some idiots like that. And we need to make sure that if there's idiots like that, or the idiots that will create politburos that have mass power and that doesn't make sense, we need that conservative mindset to rein it in. But they've gone Ayn Rand psycho with it and saying, well, fuck the government. I should own it, and I should exploit people through this needed service. Right? And me and my crony buddies should make the money off of that. And if you can't pay the price, fuck you. Right. And so I keep arguing that really at the end of the day, if we strip away identity politics, if we strip away religion, if we strip away all of the fears that have been demagogued into people, the fundamental argument, because competing for a good job, competing to fucking live and not fucking die. If I get unlucky enough to get cancer, does that mean I'm just death sentence? Fuck off. You're useless to society. Fuck you. If you can't pay it, fuck off.
Well, that's what the
and
neoconservative mentality.
Exactly. So there's a competitive nature. When I'm saying competitive, it's like if you can't hack it in the system as it is, and you have a fumble, be it your fault or not, fuck you.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's another way to look at it and say, shit happens. We're a nation of compassionate people, and I care about my brother. You want heavy, lean on me.
Yeah.
Right. And these people will say, well, they're going to take advantage. I'm not going to pay for someone to sit on their ass. Like, who the fuck's going to do that?
Right.
If someone were willing to pay you to sit on your ass, would you do it? Yeah. Well, fuck yeah. Well, then you're a fucking asshole.
Exactly.
So fuck off.
Yeah.
In fact, you could do that right now and go on welfare and shit. Why don't you? Well, I'm going to do better and never do it. Then why the fuck do you think you're the only one that would do that? You don't think everyone else wants to work for their family?
Exactly.
Right, or describe just like what you described to the people in Iraq. Yeah. Are they out there plotting against America? No, they're fucking living.
They're trying.
They're just going to the fucking market, and then they get fucking drone bombs, and then next thing you know, like, yeah, I fucking hate America because I lost my family.
Yeah, exactly.
And like, well, those fuckers hate America.
Well, you would hate whatever country did that to you.
We've never once could even understand at all, at fucking all, that idea, yet we decide to take action, and it's not even us taking action. They just justify the psychopathy of the corporatists, the capitalists, and all that. And when I say capitalists, I don't mean free market system. I mean the guys that are going to manipulate it for their own ends. They manipulate the government, manipulate the labor market, manipulate fucking tax it, fuck anything, manipulate whatever you can.
They practice cannibalism.
I
call it cannibalism, not capitalism.
Fucking tax it, fuck anything, manipulate whatever you can.
They practice cannibalism. I call it cannibalism, not capitalism. I mean, it's so funny. You know, we were in Iraq 4 months before the first Burger King popped open. So that right there should be a sign that we're invading countries so we can spread our brand, okay, around the world. We can have our corporations in there opening businesses, making money to bring back to the motherland or whatever the fuck you want to call it. So it's just like you said, it's exploitation of people for own benefit. You know, and to get back, I wanted to make a point when we were talking about race earlier. I don't even think it's as deep as what you were saying. I mean, that's definitely part of it. But even on the surface, white people in this country don't realize that when you're born white, you already have white privilege. I forget the guy's name. He's on TV all the time. He's always on Bill Maher show. He's a professor at Georgetown. He just wrote a book.
Not Tim Wise, is it?
No, it's an African American guy.
Oh,
damn it,
Neil Ta-Nehisi Coates or
no?
I don't remember.
Not Neil deGrasse Tyson either.
No,
anyways. But he wrote a book.
I don't remember his name.
And it's very simplistic. He's just basically telling white America that, look, you are white privilege. You're walking white privilege. The fact that you don't get pulled over for being black, that is white privilege. The fact that you get to go into a pharmacy or a convenience store without being eyed or suspected of committing a crime without any intent of doing so, that is white privilege. So yes, own up to it. Admit it that just being white is an advantage in this country. So
I've identified white privilege occurring to me, and I'm only halfway.
Exactly.
And thank God, I look pretty damn white because I got that privilege.
Yeah.
And people, you know, that's the thing. I recognize it. I'm not going to take advantage of it per se. Well, maybe I would. I don't know. I mean, I'll be honest with you. There's a couple of people artists and different people that I've worked with that are black, right? And when they're being candid with me, which actually most people are, I feel, because there's no reason not to be, that they, you know, they basically say, look, could you represent us to whoever? Could be a radio station, it could be anybody, because you have an image that they'll accept.
Right.
I'm like, what do you mean? Is it this? And you're like, well, yeah, basically. Okay.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
Okay. Because I'm like, dude, you know your music better than me, or you know your whatever it is better than me. Why me? Why do you want me to represent you? Well, because you dress up well in a suit, and you know.
Yeah, exactly.
And they'll take you more serious.
Yeah, and you don't have, you know, an accent.
Right, and you speak in a way that's different than the way I speak.
Yeah.
Damn.
But that goes back to what I'm saying though. We're so judgmental.
There's a conditioning that occurs.
Exactly. I mean, and trust me, I fight this battle with my uncles every time I'm around them. It's like, look, you have to stop looking at everything through the eyes of yourself, because you are a white male. You have to look at it through the eyes of the minorities. You can't blame them for having resentment. But
isn't it amazing though when you talk to black people, Hispanic, any other race that gets shit on by some white people? Not all white people. Don't get all fucking white guilt on me or whatever. Like, you're a race traitor.
Yeah, whatever.
But just because I recognize something, even seeing it is too much for some people.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, they'll say something like, "Well, I checked my bank account. I didn't see no white privilege deposit."
No, because you were born with it.
I mean, but how stupid and ignorant is that? You know, one really very succinct way of, you know, because there was a meme going around with these idiot white people were, but where's my white privilege? Check my bank account. And you're so fucking stupid and dense.
And that's just,
but
so
one of the very, I guess, Occam's razor ways of saying what white privilege is that you get the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So if there's someone that stole something and someone went running, it's like, oh man, I didn't get a chance to see it. It was dark and they just ran and they were wearing a hood.
Oh, was it a black guy?
I don't know. They were wearing a hood. Well, what did you see? I don't know. They were running. Okay. And then if there's a black guy and a white guy, both run down the street. Now, the black guy, just because the cops are around, they're running because like, fuck. And if you ask a black kid, why did you run? Because I know that bad shit happens when cops come around.
Exactly.
Right? And a white kid's running because he actually did the crime. Let's just say.
Yeah.
Who's getting the benefit of the doubt?
That white kid, for sure.
For sure, the white kid's getting the benefit of that. Now, there's white apologists, white supremacist apologists that would say, no, it's equal. It's totally fair. They wouldn't totally not treat it. They would look at them and they would assess the situation and do bull fucking shit.
Yeah.
If you think that, you're fucking out of your gourd and in some other reality.
So naive and unaware of what's happening in this country.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, ideally, you're right. I would love if that was the case. Yeah. But it's not. It's simply
you can just look at the prison system. I mean, you know, there's a majority minorities incarcerated in this country.
Even though statistically they do the same type of the same wash.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And then even then, there's so many reports of drugs being planted or different things, or police chiefs getting in trouble for framing black people
or over policing black communities.
Right, and it just sort of goes in this stream of shit that happens, and you know, as long as I don't bring it up, it never happened.
Right.
You know what I mean? So these white people, they're just like, it doesn't happen unless you say it, and even if you say it, it's fake news.
Exactly.
Prove it. You better find the article. Find 3 articles.
Right, and it better be
I don't believe it.
Yeah, and it better be off of InfoWars or Breitbart or Fox
otherwise
News.
It's not real.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and it's like, oh my God, what the fuck? It's like it's so hard to explain it, and it's not. It's really not that hard to understand. I remember working with some folks once, and they were going off about Obama about some shit, and it was back in 2015 or some shit, and they were just talking all this shit, and I'm not an Obama fan. Like, people, when I talk shit on Trump, they automatically think I'm a Hillary Clinton and Obama fan, and that again is another sign of the neurosis or the psychosis or whatever you want to call it, the brain rot that's happening in America, and so I'm just listening and whatever. I'm just doing my shit, and then at some point I'm like, so what is it exactly that Obama did that affected you to the point where you have such disdain?
Mm-hmm.
And after some thinking, they're like, well, he just always sided with the blacks.
What?
Like, he just did so much for the blacks and just
screw
everyone else.
What did he do?
Yeah, it's like exactly like what?
Did he expand
well,
welfare?
he just said Trayvon Martin could be his son. What the hell is that?
Well, he's a black guy and he was a black kid. Yeah, he could be any black man's son.
When anytime a white person gets killed, guess what? You resonate with them because it could have been you or your kid or your daughter or whatever.
But it's different.
But it's different when
especially a black guy who's in, the seat of the president of the United States.
Right. So saying that was shitting on white people. To them, in their mind. Yeah. Saying Trayvon Martin, that was what they brought up. That was why they hated the Obama presidency. That's why it divided America.
He should not even made a comment on that. That's just a local crime. That's not the president. Oh, bullshit.
See, all that kind of shit.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just, it blows my mind because they want to dig as much. And in other words, it's because a black guy is in the presidency. Yeah. Because you can't really say, because if anything, he fucked up. He didn't fuck up the black community. He just sort of said, fuck you. I'm not really going to do anything at all.
And like I said, I think that goes back to the fact that he was an ass. And he's like, I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't. So let me try to appease the masses. I still think I have the support of the minority, but let me appease the masses. And I really think, and it's not just him. I think every president.
Even then, he couldn't appease all of the white mass because
even though he continued most of the same Bush administration.
Exactly,
policy.
The same shit. The same.
Only thing that he did that was different is he brought in a mandate for health care.
Yeah, and even then, it was a gift to the health insurance companies.
So it's like,
let's force everybody to buy your shit. I wish someone would be forced to buy my shit.
Exactly.
But I would be able to afford 3 meals a day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, hello, you didn't do shit.
Exactly.
And so, it's just bullshit. And I remember there was this young girl that was maybe 18, just graduated high school or something. And she was telling me about racism and reverse racism and how black people are more racist now because Obama. And like, really? What? Like, well, yeah, because I tried to try out for this thing and then I was discriminated against because I'm white and I got black girls chosen over me. And I'm like,
just better than you.
Okay. Right? Well, I was like, well, okay. Well, whether or I don't know the situation, but let's back up for a second. How did that make you feel? It's like, well, made me feel like shit. It's unfair. I'm like, okay, absolutely. So what if I told you I don't believe you?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that would be fucked up. Like, I would get really upset. I'm like, okay. I'm not saying I don't believe you. I believe that this happened. I told you. I believe this happened. And I said, let me ask you something. Are there more white people or more black people in America? Well, you got to think. I'm like, well, blacks are called a minority and whites are a majority. So that means there's more white people, right? And I said, well, do you think because of desegregation and all of these things that all white people now, because someone changed the rules and laws, do they change hearts and minds?
No.
Right. And so, like, do you think that just because they changed those rules that all the racist people just stop being racist? Well, no. Do you think they maybe taught their kids to be racist too? Well, maybe. I'm like, yeah, some of them, right? Not all of them. Well, yeah, okay. So if you're black, are you more likely to run into a racist white person? Or if you're white, are you even more likely to run into a racist black person? Number one. Number two, is that white person more likely to be in power or the black person more likely to be in power, right? Like as your manager, a judge, a cop, loan officer, any fucking thing, principal, whatever the fuck you want to say. Are there more black doing that or white doing that? Okay, now let's follow along with me. Are you more likely if you're black to run into a racist situation or if you're white? And she's like, well, I guess if you're black, more likely. I'm like, okay. Now, now remember, how did you feel when you felt like you were, that racism was committed against you? She's like, I felt really shitty. I'm like, okay. And remember, when I told you I didn't believe you, how did you feel? very upset.
Mm-hmm.
Now imagine you're black
Mm-hmm.
and someone tells you there's no more racism
Mm-hmm.
and that all that you experience is bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, wow, I never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
I was like, well, think about it like that.
Exactly.
Because that's what's happening right now. So every white person that says there's not racism against black people is essentially saying, fuck you and your story.
Mm-hmm.
It's not happening.
Yeah.
So sorry, white girl. There's no such thing as black people being racist. Fuck off.
Right.
How do you feel?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Oh, I feel like shit. I didn't say that to her. But yeah, you feel like shit. Now imagine black people with white people saying, white privilege, I checked my bank account, I didn't see it. Well, if he didn't want to get shot, he should have listened to the cop. And well, there's no such thing as racism anymore. We have a black president. Right? And I don't know. It's just it just I don't get it. I think if you have an agenda in your heart, you will refuse to see the truth. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's one of the issues today is that people are just so set in what they believe.
But that's the thing. Going back to, by default, if you're white, you were raised under white supremacy. Like the notion of white supremacy, because somewhere in your family or within your extended social network, you have been around a racist person that was not challenged, saying racist shit to a degree where it was at least slightly normalized.
Mm-hmm.
And chances are you didn't make a wave either.
Yeah.
You didn't call out your racist uncle probably, or you didn't call out the racist neighbor, and you just let them say nigger or whatever without any retribution, any like, dude, what the fuck, man? Why would you say that?
Yeah.
You know? No, they're just like, I don't agree with him, but yeah, whatever. But then when you've heard all this shit and then you see it on Fox News or whatever, like, oh, black people just do nothing and da-da-da. And then Fox News says, well, the black people, they're doing nothing and da-da-da. Like, huh, that's what I heard when I was growing up. And this respectable looking white guy, oh, shit, this black guy that they paid is showing up saying, yeah, all that shit's real, what I just said.
Yeah.
That validates all my racist uncle shit, you know? And so now, what else are you going to think? It's going to feel visceral when I say that black people are being subject, not all black people at all times, all the freaking, not saying that. Now, it's not like Jim Crow. It's not like slavery and segregation where it was like written in by judicial edict,
right.
But it's this sort of sinister under the surface, you know, base, like background noise. Yeah. This background radiation of racism that exists.
Well, just look, you know, there's a reason why minority communities are centered in city, urban areas. It's because when the suburbs were built, it was for the white communities to go and escape the plight of the minorities in the cities. Mm. I can work with them in the city, but we don't want to live with them. Mm. Look, I mean, you can just look at the subdivisions around here. Half of them have the word plantation in them. Mm-hmm. You know, Julington Creek plantation. I mean, it is there for a reason. It may be even subconscious to a point, but they promote these subdivisions in the suburbs for white families. I mean, you look at their advertising for these suburbs. Majority of them are white families riding bikes, and you don't see African American families or a mixed race family.
Yeah, it's the white people on the beach with the white linen shirt and the khaki pants rolled up, walking. Come to White People Cove,
right?
And Caucasian Cove, where you are safe. Right? Yeah. We have guards and a fence.
Just the word
gated community.
If I'm an African American,
like
I know my history, right. I'm not moving to a subdivision called plantation.
Now some people probably be like, well, that's a name, or maybe it's goals. I don't know, but I mean, the product of red zoning or redlining or whatever, generations of being denied loans to live in a certain area specifically. Yeah. And so many people, I mean, that in of itself creates white privilege.
Exactly.
Right. And here's another thing. Remember, there's that psycho lady that would always comment on my shit. Remember we
got
into it.
Yeah.
She posted some stupid shit about, like, there was this black dude that I can't remember his name. He's a black conservative. I don't know if he's real or not, because it was interesting. It was either Sam Cedar or I think it was someone from like Michael Brooks on the Sam Cedar show. I think he described talking to one of these black conservatives, and basically they were talking about some shit, just bantering before the camera or after the show or something. And they were like really trying to sort of get into the ideas behind, like, where are you coming from with this? And he's like, and they were like, dude, we're off camera, man. Like, we're cool. Like, wait, what? Is this like an acting job for you? I mean, and then that's the thing, is like the chance that some of the folks that are advocates of saying, like black people that are saying there is no white privilege, how do you know that they're not paid to say that?
Exactly.
And they're like, well, fuck, I need to make some money anyway and make a living. If I can do that just hanging out with these white dudes, I don't care. Like, there's actors saying all sorts of crazy shit in Hollywood.
Yeah.
I just get paid to sit here and do this. It's a little different format, right? And I'm not saying that it's necessarily true. I don't know. Right. That's just, they gave some anecdotal story about it. Mm-hmm. But what was I going to say? So she posted this thing as if it's a proof that it's because it's coming from a black guy, and this black woman couldn't really articulate. God, I hated that she couldn't really articulate what the pervasive nature of the white privilege, and so that was her like defense that it's not legit. And I'm like, okay, first of all, that's the equivalent of pulling a race card. So number one, did you check his race card? If he's not a delegate of the black people on his race card, then you can't fucking use him as your delegate, right? Number one. And number two, just because he said it doesn't mean it's real, because I made some arguments about it, and I put there's a small segment of a Tim Wise. Tim Wise is a great guy that really gets into the depths of race history in America. And he really starts back in, of course, slavery, and then during Civil War, and even after the Civil War, about the appeasement of the whites to subjugation of the blacks to appease the whites, to exploit the whites by the landed gentry. They don't understand it's a class war.
Yeah,
but it's a class war smothered in the icing of race war.
Yeah, because
and all you see is the creamy icing. You don't see the shit cake underneath. Now they think it's creamy icing because they want to be superior to someone else. Yeah, I'm down on my luck. I have shit. Or like in the Civil War, fuck, these landed gentry people, the plantation owners, have slaves. Guess what they're not doing with you? Hiring you. They're taking jobs away from you so they can own these things. Right. So it's working against your own interest to fight for them to have it, right? Yeah. But it's enough. There's enough of a stoking of racial superiority is enough for these white people to do these crazy things, right? And this continual appeasement of giving special privileges to the whites so that they would take shit basically from the landed gentry, say, look, you're better off than this asshole, right? And I don't remember who it was. It was one of Nixon's advisors, right? What was his name? I can't remember. It'll come to me. Someone might know. And they said basically, if you can, as long as you can make the white man think he's higher than the black man, he'll let you pick his pocket all day or something like that. Exactly. And so Tim Wise talks about the politicians making white favorable legislation to continually do that, right? Yeah. And her response was, well, there's shitty people. Of course, there's been racism and racist politicians and da-da-da. I'm like, exactly. White people were privileged over black people for generations. Yeah. That is the definition of white privilege. Exactly. Some laws affected some people and didn't affect others by race. That, by definition, is white privilege. And it continues today. Yeah. And so that I mean, obviously there was no. The retort back was, well, there's racist in every political party. I'm like, are you fucking stupid? I mean, I just can't talk anymore. Like, it doesn't matter if there's racist in the Democratic or whatever fucking party.
We're talking
at
about
the end of the day,
itself.
as the legislation comes out, and black people don't get to qualify for land grant colleges, and black people don't get 40 acres like white people get in the Midwest, that is white privilege. When your family is allowed to take over the monopoly board, and then, oh yeah, here, go ahead and jump in with your $500. You land on Park Place and get fucked. Well, hey, it's equal opportunity, guys. I mean, really, whatever. You just got to put your nose to the grindstone, man. I mean, our family worked hard too. Yeah. Right? It's like, God, how superficial can you really be about such a deep issue? You know?
That's because nobody wants to look at the issue from the other side. They're so self-absorbed, and that's what I tell people about Americans in general, is that our problem is if it doesn't affect me and my home and my backyard, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
I don't care if it causes my neighbor to go fucking broke, whatever law they want to pass. As long as it doesn't affect me and what I believe, I don't give a shit. Fuck everybody else. And that's where we were talking earlier, is why aren't we looking at ourselves as a collective group of people?
Because you use a C word, which equals
communism. Yes, we can't be a collective.
But the only thing we can be collective for is for police and for the military, not teachers and not healthcare. And maybe roads, but nah, fuck that. We'd love to privatize roads and put tolls on every fucking thing.
Absolutely.
And maybe even the firefighters. You know, once we had privatized firefighters once. Guess what would happen? They would show up to your house that was burning, and then what?
Wait for you to pay.
Wait for you to pay. If you couldn't pay, guess what?
Your fucking
house burned down. And what would happen? What happens when you live only 5 feet away from your neighbor, and your house is burning down?
His house.
Their house burned down. Oh, and then guess what? The government was like, you know what? This doesn't work so well. How about we collect taxes? And if your house is burning down, these guys will just come and you know, and you never hear anybody say, you know, we need competitive firefighters. They're like, well, no, we need competitive schools because the teachers, you know, they're fuckers. I'm like, well, how come you never tell the firefighters, like, how do I know my firefighters in my municipality are getting to the fire fast compared to the other municipality? Maybe I should have a fucking choice about who saves my house.
Yeah.
Nobody says a fucking word. Nobody says, well, are the police competitive? I mean, how do I know the police in the adjoining municipality aren't better at fighting crime and protecting than serving? Maybe we should compete to see who's the better police. They never fucking say that.
No, but the thing is they love this whole privatization thing, because they'll say, well, if we outsource it and let a contractor do it, they can do it for less money. Well, yeah, because they're fucking their employees and they're paying them less. So, yeah, if the government does it, our government actually pays them a living wage and gives them responsibilities and it holds them accountable. Well, but a contractor's not going to do that.
So, well, the thing
you're going to get the least amount of service for production for what they're getting paid.
And the Randian concept is, well, they're going to be the most efficient. That's why it's the most efficient.
Economically efficient.
Maybe.
That's all they ever say.
Yeah, but
it's all about the economic.
In a way, it's not even that, because how do you know? Yeah. Automatically, remember, what is the motive of a capitalist enterprise?
To profit.
Profit. So by definition, there is an extraction chunk, a level of inefficiency built in that goes in the pockets of the owner.
Exactly.
Right. So when you look at the government, what if we paid the same amount, but we broke it down? And here's the thing.
Proportionally equal.
What makes you think that the corporation or whoever is going to hire these superior people?
They're not. They're getting the cheapest labor they can
find. It's the cheapest shit they can find compared to, the government could hire for a decent price the best people for that price.
Right. And they could provide them with a retirement, a pension, health care.
And the thing is,
these contract companies aren't even going to provide health care.
And the thing is, they're all for that if it's the military.
Yeah.
But if it's anybody else, fuck off and die.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
All right, so we've been on. I think we've been having a great conversation. McLouis V put a couple questions on, and I hope he hasn't dropped off. He might have dropped off by now. But anyway, so he can check the archive to see what we say. So the first question he has is, tell the truth about the Kandahar Giant in Afghanistan. What is that? What is he talking about, the Kandahar Giant?
I have no clue. Could you elaborate?
McLouis V, if you're still watching, please elaborate. He has a second question. Are there similarities between a magician who asks you to pick a card, any card, and not caring what you pick with your vote on election day?
Now that's pretty deep.
Well, I think, ooh, yes, that is deep. Are there similarities? What do you think? I think this last election shows us, yes, there are very much similarities.
Yeah, I think it gets to the point. I think the point that I think,
like, no matter what you choose,
you're still a politician.
It's being controlled.
Exactly. They're still being
It's a controlled environment.
They're bought, paid for by the corporations, the lobbyists. They're not serving the interests of the people. They're serving the interest of those that are lining their pockets. And if you're a senator or congressman, you're only serving the interest of that minute little piece of your community, and you're not really even serving their interests. You're promising them jobs. That's just great. Okay. But those jobs that you're bringing there may be for another defense contractor who's going to build a useless weapon that our tax dollars get wasted on. So is it really to the benefit of that community? Well, yeah, I'm putting money in my pocket. But once again, since those people aren't giving a shit about what happens to everyone else in the country, they'll let the other 99.9% of the people paying taxes in the other districts fund their jobs because they don't give a fuck. You know, even though they know it's a worthless project or whatever it may be. So, yeah, it doesn't really matter anymore. Republican, Democrat, they have all gone towards, you know, the.
But here's the thing: why is it that they're so willing to throw the money at these defense contractor jobs when we could say, well, why don't we just take that same money and put it into infrastructure? And we can still employ people.
Let's improve our public education system.
Yeah, we can still employ people.
Yeah, let's make sure that every school gets the equal amount. We don't base it on what they're rated as. Oh, well, you're a higher rating, so we give you more money. Should it not be the other way around?
Right.
Let's put more money into the struggling schools. Keep those kids in their communities. You know, give them a place to go that they can escape whatever is going on around them, and they can get out of there.
Right.
Yeah, it's everything here, like you said, it's all ass backwards. And now we'll you know, let them do voucher programs that taxpayers pay for, or we'll open charter schools and we'll call them public. Yet they'll get the public funding, but they're still privately run.
Right.
You know, and their teachers are not getting paid anymore.
And I don't see. Oh, thank Mark Madala. Hey man, thanks for watching on YouTube, especially on the YouTube channel. Preach, brother, preach.
What you want me to preach about? I'm not much.
What are you preaching about now, man? We're taking them to church, son.
Well, I could preach about that too. Well, that's another issue we should bring up.
The religion.
Let's make some people angry.
Handmaid's Tale's coming.
Yeah.
Speaking of religion, that's the Kandahar Giant in Afghanistan. It's a biblical being named the Nephilim. The Nephilim are believed to be the offspring of humans and gods. So they're giants. They can't handle just regular, you know, human biology.
Wasn't like Hercules a product of a god and a
Hercules would be
like a demigod?
Yeah, they were offspring of humans and gods.
I used a example of something. What was it? The same thread where Mitch McConnell was getting shamed, and I was like, turn the dial. In fact, we should have someone. And by the way, people out in the public somewhere, like and share. By the way, and this is an idea. Please, you techies out there, if we could develop an app, sort of like Waze, or that incorporates Google or some kind of GPS program, and if you see a politician, you can like mark yourself on the map, and then anyone that's within, like, that has alerts on, be like bling bling, and if you're within a radius, right, if you're within this area and they're on there, you can actually go.
I like it. Hey,
Oh, yes.
I did the swing shifts for about 6 years in a ceiling tile factory, so I feel your pain
Dude,
there.
yes, definitely understand. And by the way, you can always catch it on the archive, so I understand if you miss it. But I'm just glad that you even spent your time. I mean, you only got a few minutes, and you chose to spend them on with us on the Void, and hopefully some of the subject matter sort of resonates with you. If you, Mark, especially what is it? Like if there's some topics you want us to address or talk about, let me know. Put it in the comments. Like I said, even if you have to check the archives, throw it in there. I always go back and look for these comments, etc. But going back to the shaming of politicians. Like if we had an app like that, how great would that be? And you can just like, and in fact, there should be a corrupt politician registry, I believe anyway, just like a sex offender registry.
Well,
like
yeah.
if you fuck the society, you shouldn't be able to have a fun time back and reassimilating or even living in society. If as soon as a scandal of your corruption or a lack of integrity for the American people or the people you represent, you should not only be tried, but you should, even if you do your time and you leave that jail or whatever you did, you should now be marked. You raised your hand to be trusted, to be able to, like, how many people fucking hate politics? A lot of people. I hate politics. The only reason
I love it as a subject, but I hate it as a practice.
I hate it as a subject.
As a practice,
I hate it all. And people are like, what the fuck, James? You're always talking. You beat everybody up about politics. No. I beat up about concepts.
Right.
I beat up about, like I was saying, I don't know if I had a chance to say that. I don't remember, about eternal vigilance. Right. There's a saying that's been co-opted by the military-industrial complex that, and I did some research on it. And from what I understand, nobody knows exactly who said this, but you might have heard this before. But it's the quote is, "The price of liberty is eternal vigilance." And where you'll find that saying, "The price of vigilance," or "Price of liberty is eternal vigilance," is what is that? That you put? Is that a male sign?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Thumbs up.
Is that what emoji is that? I can't. Maybe my eyes are going bad. I am getting. Look at those gray hair. So my eyes might be on what it is. And then the male sign. Cryptic, but I hope that I don't know. Oh, he hates politics too. Oh. Yeah. It's because we trust these people. It's like when you have a plumbing problem, you don't want to have to know every fucking thing about plumbing to make sure that the plumber did his shit. You know what I mean? And you trust them. You hired them to. You said, yeah, I will. For instance, in order to be hired as a plumber, you have to raise your hand and basically say, I'm a plumber. Choose out of me and my buddies, right? And you say, okay, I choose you to, and I pay you, go do this. I don't want to have to know every fucking thing about everything in order to know that you're not fucking me. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. Well,
they're paid to get into a specific, to watch things. For what do we end up doing? Most people in this world, not just this country, what do they want to do?
Just live.
Just fucking live. They want to provide for their family and just maybe drink some beers on the weekend and watch some football or some shit. They don't give a fuck.
Right.
And they shouldn't have to give a fuck.
Right.
They hired the fucking politicians to give a fuck and help us.
Yeah,
so that's why I hate politics. I shouldn't have to worry about it. It's because these fucktards up here decide to fuck us all because they think, and this is the thing, even James Madison, the architect of our Constitution, his mentality was, in his exact quote, he coined the phrase, or I think he coined the phrase, the opulent minority. The opulent minority is to be protected by the Constitution. And all men are created equal, but there's the men in the field, and then there's the men that watch over them.
Will run shit.
Yeah. And so that's now supposedly
that's
Jefferson,
inherently unequal.
Yeah, supposedly Jefferson though was a true democratic person who believed, he trusted in the people. And here's the thing: a lot of people cite mob mentality about certain issues, and I think they fail to see the power in their views. And the fact that, like, going back to the fact we need conservatives to look at what's happening and say, no, wrangle this back in. But they've gone to the point where they're out of their gourd with reality.
Yeah.
They fail to even look at history. They fail to, and here it's the same thing. I'm afraid it's the same thing that got the Civil War to even work. How do you get poor white people to work against their own interests? Well, you come up with some concocted bullshit and then you lay it on them and to make them feel good.
Or just spitballing here.
Yeah.
Or is it the fault of the people that elect these politicians? Because they are electing the person that's going to represent them. So does that mean as a society we are fucked on?
Well, to some degree, right? And that's why, and there's a numbness to, you know, all of this comparisons to what we've seen in fascist countries as they come to rise, come to power, right? Hitler, right? Fervor. That becomes the you know, go-to, and everyone's like, oh shit, here he compared him to Hitler. I'm not saying that.
I told my wife the other night, I said, every time I hear him say something about nationalism and how great America is, it fucking reminds me of Hitler.
Yeah, because if you look at the words and if you look at the tactics, and you look at the demagoguery, and the thing is, most of the people that are super fans don't know what the word demagoguery means. So how can they recognize a thing that they don't know exists?
Exactly.
Right. If they don't really understand what fascism is or the elements of it, how can
they don't even know what socialism is?
They don't know.
Because if they did, they would realize, like we were saying earlier, they're living in a social society now.
Right.
It's just not totally socialized. But the stuff that is socialized, they love it.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
The military. I stand with our police.
And going back to the crazy,
they shoot minorities, and I'm not a minority, so I stand with my police.
That crazy lady I was telling you about, you know, she was. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to. I was trying to see if I have. Actually, let me give this to TJ, producer TJ, back in the house. I'm trying to see if do we still have On Stupid around here? Because I almost just want to see this again. Here, do we have On Stupid? Maybe. Oh man, I might have got rid of it.
On Stupid.
Well, yeah. So. Yeah, maybe it's in there somewhere. It was basically I really wish I knew who wrote it, but it was a comment that I saw that. Oh, you found it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, hit restore. Oh, I hope it restores. Okay, so this was, if you can blow that up, man, that would be awesome. That plug, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I like it.
All right, so yeah, so On Stupid, and if you could go ahead and switch to desktop, that'd be great, man. The On Stupid is a comment I saw that was sort of assuaging this guy that was getting really frustrated with this, basically a Trump supporter, of course, that was failing. And it wasn't so much a Trump supporter, it was a capitalist apologist that wouldn't see the point. Like, nobody was saying we should ditch the free market and go into full-on socialism. Oh, wait, that should already be down at the bottom. Yeah. Uh-oh.
Froze.
What's the YouTube feed looking like? Oh, well,
I'm still fat.
Hey, Mark, thanks for watching. If he's gone, he might be gone. But anyway, if you can't switch, or you might have to restart it or something. I don't know. Like you did. Sorry, I didn't. I thought it was gonna switch over for you. But the whole thing about On Stupid was he was just really getting frustrated, and this guy kept saying, "We're like, hey, look, we need labor rights. We need some safety for people to be able to be on a level playing field with mass capital. So when Jeff Bezos decides to open an Amazon, he gets to beat up whatever town that he decides, and he can set the wage, he can set whatever he wants, he can pay off the politicians. That is what we're talking about. Well, that's crony capitalism. No. That is the That is capitalism.
Yeah.
When I'm saying capitalism, that is what I'm talking about. The effects of accumulated power of through capital. What the free market is what the idealistic fantasy view is of I make baskets and my superior baskets are going to corner the market in baskets. They stop at that part, and now they don't think like, okay, when Mr. Basket guy needs so much wicker for whatever, or reeds or for his baskets, that now he kicks out all these people that are living near a marsh or something, and now they're homeless. That's what we're fucking talking about. Or he needs so many laborers to weave his baskets that he's, you know,
ripple effect.
Yes, it's the them. We see it happen over and over in history, over and over in history. The monopoly capitalists, all the way to the Standard Oil, and all these things in the early 1900s. Kids dying in the meat plants, in the coal factory. The fact that you had kids working, right? You had all that shit. People dying, their hands getting chopped off and shit, right? No regulations, because that is rampant capitalism,
and that's what they want. You know,
that's what they
thing about the 1980s of deregulating.
They want to bring it back, and to me, that's like how crazy. Oh, look, we got infinity. All right, so he got it on the screen, so you guys can take a look. Okay, so I'm gonna read it out loud. You guys can follow me, but just on stupid. I've read this before. I want to redo it because I think it's such a good assessment of the problem that we're seeing. So number one. Research requires effort. So strike one, stupid people don't do effort. It's that simple, right? They're not going to do effort, okay? Opinions will always be substitute for lies. Strike two, they're not lying. They're simply stating a quote unquote opinion. Stupid people will then invoke the First Amendment right to divert attention from reality. So they can play the make-believe victim, quote unquote, of free speech oppression when they actually want free reign to lie all day long, right? It does not matter if they don't understand. Strike three. They simply do not care, nor will they spend the effort to understand. Understanding the subject matter is not required to lie. Do you need to understand how your car's engine works to be able to turn it on? Exactly. Right? It's the same with lying. It helps to know something to make the lies believable, but it's not required, so they'll not spend the effort to understand. And then he gives an example. Some months ago, a meme was being passed around Facebook indicating that the governor of California is requiring Arabic numerals in public schools to support Sharia law. After being told that the meme content is fake, a Trump supporter proceeded to lie, claiming she already knew it was fake. I already knew. She said she realized it was fake because she knew Arabic numbers aren't real.
They're not real.
Not real.
The
Fake news.
They're just the ones.
Arabic. No, everybody knows.
Yeah.
Everybody knows Arabics can't count. They use American numbers. Those assholes hijacked our numbers.
We only got numbers over here.
Yeah, they're the ones that put letters in math problems.
Well, they fucked it up.
Oh, wow.
See, they fucked it up. That's the wrong kind.
They didn't get that far.
Yeah, no.
That ain't even math. That's fucking called English.
Stupid.
For those who did not attend any math classes during their 12 years of schooling, okay, a simple Google search, and this is true, right?
Yeah.
Go do it, for Arabic numerals would have sufficed, but she obviously did not do that. Remember, stupid people do not do effort, and she knew she didn't bother to look anything up. She did not care. It did not stop her from lying.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is on stupid, and I need to go find out who did. So I'm going to copy and code it. Just really, I think they really said, and now I'm not saying it's a right-wing. Mean that you have a mental deficiency. It's that you're behave in a manner.
Seek the knowledge. If you want to know something for it, find the answer. Don't come up with your own view of what you think the answer should be. So there you're
based
already
on
predetermining what you're going to say about a certain situation, issue. You've already predetermined what you're going to say about it, regardless of the facts. So if you know about something, the information's there. You have the internet. Go find it. Make sure it's reputable. Find it from 3 or 4 different sources. Make sure it all jives. Don't just predetermine the outcome before you ever get the information.
Right. I mean, you see the same thing with Obama fans, and they want to like lay the red carpet out. I'm like, dude, do you know the National Defense Authorization Act was signed by Obama that allows you to basically be pulled from your family or wherever the fuck you are, to Guantanamo Bay.
Yeah.
Literally, you can be stuck in Cuba because they thought your views were threatening. Literally. What views are that? I don't know. If you're a threat to America.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Well, we'll see when we pick you up.
Look and see how many people are in prison for conspiracy charges.
Yeah.
They never
Bingo.
actually committed a crime. They thought about it. They mentioned they may, and then they were arrested.
Or Obama deported mass numbers of people. And there were people on the left, right? Maybe not the liberals in the corporate Dems and that kind of shit, but there were people on the left that were like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? Yeah. And of course the right wing movement, well, you didn't care when you were doing it. Right. And I'm like, no, dude, people did care. And the other thing is the travesty of the media, right? There's truth in the somewhere in this quagmire. There are nuggets of truth. Like, for instance, the media doesn't give a fuck about you, right? What is the media? From MSNBC all the way to Fox.
It's a source of entertainment.
Not even that.
Well,
what are they? They're corporations.
Yeah.
And so what is the corporate?
The more entertaining they are, the more viewers they'll have.
And
the more money. Yes,
they don't love you. Why would they tell you the truth? Only people that love you tell you the truth. How many people that you know in your life don't tell you the truth? Why the fuck would a corporation that's into money and tribalism, I think his name is Seth Godin or somebody. There's a guy that wrote a whole like business self-help book called like Finding Your Tribe about like, fuck it. You don't need to corner the entire market. Just find a chunk of the market. Just so many people that you can survive off of what? What if you had 3 million fans? You think you could survive? Oh, yeah, I could. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I could sell whatever it is to 3 million people, and I'd probably make a living. So what do you think? If there's a left-right paradigm, do they give a fuck about the right if my paradigm's the left? I got my own little clutch of money makers. If I'm on the right, do I give a fuck about the left? No. In fact, the more I keep them here, the more money that they'll make me. And the more advertisers know that I've at least got this segment of the population, or I've got this is my demo. We typically lean left. So anybody that likes left, they're going to watch our shit. And so would you like to advertise with our left-leaning shit? We have about 6 billion subscribers. And what part of that has to do with the truth?
Well, I wouldn't say that it has to do with the truth, but I would caution that don't conflate this with us saying that it's all fake news. Now, the headlines, those are real. Those are facts. Those are things that are happening. It's
sometimes. Maybe.
Well, it's how they spin the follow-up to the headline.
I mean, since some people are like, well, who should we believe? And da-da-da. Well, to me, I think that becomes a search. And here's the thing. When we go, I want to go back to the on stupid that I went over. In order to really know and seek the truth, it's fucking exhausting. It's exhausting. And people just want to cop out and just go off of what they heard last because they're feels, and they want to exhibit their feels with the words that they heard. And it takes work to go back and say, okay, well, I want to posit an economic argument because I don't feel like I don't, and maybe it starts with a feeling like, shit, there's something wrong. Something doesn't make sense. Like, for instance, under capitalism, there's a constant need to increase profits or a constant need to grow. I need 10%. Need to grow. How can you have infinite growth on a finite world? You can't, right? It's like we're ignoring this problem and ignoring.
They have ways of doing it. Job cuts, increased costs,
but it's not really increased. But at the same time, how if you keep cutting jobs and cutting wages, who is going to buy your product?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, it's in conjunction with it's an increase in the cost of their final product. With they balance it out.
Well, at the end of the day, though, if you keep doing that, when you don't have a market because you basically now you only have the very slim crust of market.
Well, see, this is where I think they all sit on each other's boards.
Yeah.
So I really think that when two competing corporations realize that they're not going to be able to outcompete the other, they collude. They set prices. They set wage standards between themselves.
Yep.
So one is not more competitive than the other. Let's just agree to fuck everybody to the benefit of both of us, because we know we can't outproduce
in fact, there's an example of this when Fidelity first moved into, and maybe this is airing dirty laundry, so maybe I'll get more subscribers this way. When Fidelity first moved to Jacksonville, there was a mass exodus out of Merrill Lynch, and there was a gentleman's meeting between the the stakeholders in Merrill Lynch and those at Fidelity to say, hey, look, can we make a mutually beneficial agreement to where you won't offer more money and we won't lose more people, and let's sort of keep this in check.
Yeah.
Now, does that sound like an open free market for the labor? No, it's a collusion, and yet labor isn't allowed to collude. Nope. If you even sniff about unionizing, then what? You get fired immediately, and your family can no longer get hired in the area, right? Why is that? Has that a free market? Hey, how about this? To take it one step further, if Harley is allowed to close a plant in I'm just gonna make it up, Pennsylvania, and send it to Thailand, is that a free market? Okay, if you say, well, yeah, that's a free market. Sure, they're just choosing labor. Oh, okay. So what if I'm a worker and the labor conditions suck in my country? Can I go to your country? Oh no, the labor can't move. Only the jobs in the capital can move.
Right.
That doesn't sound like a fucking free market, asshole.
It's exploitation.
It is exploitation. So that's a hypocritical contradiction that occurs. It's a situation where these contradictions aren't thought out, right? They don't think, instead of looking at the underlying cause, why is there a mass exodus? Why is there such economic disparity between countries or whatever? Is it caused by our own government and CIA or other factors like NAFTA and other trade agreements that really don't benefit people, just like every other thing that we've been doing?
Nothing we do is beneficial to the people of our country or the country that we're exploiting. It's beneficial to, like you said, the capital that we're moving around. And that's all it is. It's like a game of chess. This company will move here because they get a better tax break. They have very lenient labor laws. They don't even have to, give them water breaks or lunches. They can work them 12 continuous hours at $3 an hour. So hell yeah, why wouldn't I, if I'm a corporation trying to maximize profit, move to a country where I know they work harder for way less and require less from me?
Right. Well, we're basically exporting what we wouldn't let happen here. So we've already gone through child labor laws. So we've already gone through safety. Yeah. And now the capitalists want to say, look, that we don't want these regulations. We don't need worker safety rules. We don't need environmental rules.
We'll take care of them. Trust us. We'll do the right thing.
And instead of saying you're hurting our ability to make profits by these regulations, what they should be saying is, I don't have a viable business because I can't make money without polluting the environment. I can't make money without causing safety hazards. I can't make money without, and then he's like, well, I'm not competitive. Well, stop fucking doing business with these people until they change their shit, right? Like, well, they're developing. Fuck off.
Right.
No, that's the capitalist trying to pull the wool over your eyes to say, no, they just didn't have the same amount of time and exploitation that you have already. So it's their turn.
Yeah.
And then they'll use the argument that, well, capitalists has brought us so many people out of poverty. Well, let me ask you, if you were minding your own fucking business and you had 2 goats and 3 acres of land and everything was fucking fine, and I was raising my fava beans and killing my goats and chickens, and my family was fucking fine. And I could even send, from what I raised at the farmer's market, I can send my kid to school. I'm fine. So when the corporation comes in, buys the land, and the government kicks you off for the benefit of the land, or the corporation comes in, Coca-Cola steals the municipal water, and now the people can't even fucking have water.
Is that in India they're doing that?
In Mexico.
Yeah, well, I think it's Pepsi that was
every fucking place in the world. In Michigan, they're doing it. It's literally in Michigan. Yeah. They're doing it. Flint is dying. Nestle sucking water. So, and again, when I'm talking about capitalism, I'm not talking about the free market. So Dustin, for instance, by the way, I appreciate you, especially at this late hour, by the way, still joining in. And he always comments, and I know that him and I have been in some crazy, intense Facebook battles. And I thank you, Dustin, for not having hard feelings about how crazy we get in our Facebook. But sometimes I feel like it's like that old cartoon with the coyote and the sheep dog.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, like the coyote and Roadrunner. I hated that show. But the coyote and sheep dog, I sort of like that because it's like they walk in, they both got their lunch. You know, they got the time cards like, hey, morning, Ralph.
Yeah.
Morning, Frank.
Yeah.
And now they're enemies all day. And it's like, you know, and then Coyote's got black eyes and broken bones. Like, yeah, it's a good day, Frank.
It's a perfect analogy for what the politicians are doing in D.C.
Yeah,
They'll get up there and they'll badmouth one another.
And then they go have drinks at the end of the night and say, how did you fuck over the American people today? Well, I passed this bill. Well, fuck, man, you fucked them much harder than me. I got to try harder next time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they're like, yeah, you're right. It's okay. I'll give you some pointers. Yeah, when I'll just say it's for the military next time, and they'll fucking do anything.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Oh, just say it's for the fucking, you know, it's anti-communist, and they'll fucking lick your balls, man. And they'll let you do any fucking thing you want. But Dustin did put a pretty decent long comment. Let's see what he said. A lot of pronouns in the news these days. The contraindicating qualifier. And contraindicating qualifiers. And anonymous source. Dustin, you got to stop speaking in sentence fragments. And contraindicating qualifiers and anonymous sources. BS that would never fly with journalists in recent history. Right. So, and I agree to a large degree that, I mean, you would have to, I think on the same token, you would have to admit that all mainstream media that is bought by advertisement is suspect, period. Yeah. And that, again, going back to the tribalism, anybody that makes their money off a specific demographic is suspect. So in general, journalistic integrity is already gone. So if your main source of information is from a source that is automatically biased towards an ideology, a specific ideology or party, then there is no such thing as integrity in their journalism. So you might say, well, who would you find? And I think it's a mixture of things. Yeah. I actually listen and watch Fox News occasionally because I want to see what the fuck are they saying to people, and is there a kernel of truth? And chances are there might be a kernel of truth because remember, like if it's with Obama, if in fact, and I from what I understand, there were some instances similar to what's happening now under the Obama administration. If the media failed us by not highlighting that, guess what? Who else didn't highlight that? Fox fucking News didn't highlight that. So where the fuck were they? They didn't do shit either. But that's the thing is, remember, and I hate to say this, but maybe this will be able to let people be more self-reflective. Stupid doesn't do effort. And so they're not going to think past the idea that, hey, you're just as guilty, asshole, for looking at biased shit and not even thinking that it's biased.
Yeah, so they depend on their audience being stupid.
Yes.
And not doing the effort. That way they can just feed you what they want you to know.
Right.
And they know you're not going to go out there and try to fact check them or source it.
And I think Trump and of course the Trump apologists and fans will hurt them in their heart to even hear this, and they'll say it's fake news and I'm an idiot. But Trump is the ultimate impersonification of that idea that my people are going to do stupid. They're going to do all three of stupid. They're not going to do effort. They're going to lie, and they're not going to do research. No. And they're not going to try to understand either.
Well, that's obvious because of the dumb shit that he says.
Yeah.
And they all still support him. So it's obvious either they do those things and they just don't give a shit, which in itself is kind of dangerous as well, or they just bother.
Well, it's this
They
idea.
take him for his word.
Yeah, it's
just
well,
so
it's funny, and I hate to throw. Well, I'll leave this anonymous. How about this? But there's a person that I was arguing with on Facebook that
What he said. It's intentional syncopation and artistic license to write in fragmented sentences.
Oh,
I'm assuming.
Okay, yeah, touche. I guess, yeah, our intentional syncopation. I guess. Syncopation with what? Are you talking about cadence or something like that? Anyway, whatever. What was I going to say? But yeah, that explains your sentence fragments. So, but then again, I mean, grammar was structured purposely. But in either way,
it's a rule or a law.
I want you to keep commenting. I'm just like, I was trying to read it and it was hard for me because my feeble mind. But what was I going to say? But anyway, I was talking to somebody and Trump said some stupid shit like he always does. And they were like, look, Trump knows his fans don't care what he's saying. He says they only care about results. Well, and I'm like, well, what?
They like the results that they're getting, then that's.
But even then, the fact that you're going to let someone just say whatever the fuck shit they want and just think that they're going to be getting your back in the end, even though the history of this person is showing that they cannot be trusted. And that they've been devious the whole time. And in fact, if anything, they're in a perfect position to be a pawn of someone with more power than them. And now that they're in the presidency, the fact that they may have personal shit, Bohemian Grove type shit or something, I don't know. The fact that he may be compromised. Is a scary prospect. But even then, even if he's not compromised, listen to what the fuck he says with his words.
Yeah.
Like, this man is not an intelligent human being by any stretch of the imagination. Like, the people that I argue with that defend him are smarter than him, and I would rather they be fucking president. Sometimes, not all of them, because some of them are fucking morons. But that's the thing. It's like, it's so heartbreaking to see these intelligent people bend over backwards to make this to square the peg and make it work. And I'm like, dude, come on, man. It's just, you got duped. Let's figure this out as a country together. This is dangerous. It's getting out of control.
His supporters remind me of the Snopes family. I don't know if you read any William Faulkner, but some of his short stories are based around the Snopes. And they're just these ignorant white sharecroppers that, just are set in their ways. They hate African Americans. They hate the African American neighbor sharecropper because he got a mule before he did. So, he's a son of a bitch.
Or that he got a mule at all, and only I'm supposed to have. Only whites are supposed to have.
Exactly. But every time I speak to a Trump supporter, I think of the Snopes and William Faulkner short stories. So if any of you Faulkner fans,
I haven't actually. I remember reading some Faulkner back in high school, but I can't. I got to go back and redo.
The Snopes. Yeah,
look at Dustin.
Yeah, Dustin's always been acting. You know what? Despite our differences in politics and a lot of shit, Dustin is probably the #1 supporter of this show. He's been on the show. Not on the show, but in fact, Dustin, if you want to be on the show at some point, you just let me know, and you could sit right here in the shop studios, and we can talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. It's pretty funny though. He commented, "Oh man, I was meaning to tell you," and he looks like he's using full sentences now. "Oh man, I was meaning to tell you. I totally opened an account for the Bohemian Grove. Ha ha ha. That freaked me out. You can open it. Wait, what? I thought it was like this place where they do rituals and like watch each other jack off so that they can have on each other.
Billionaires.
Sacrifice babies.
Yeah, something like that.
They do it
after
in
they
California.
do it with them or something in the forest. Yeah, and they dress up with goat heads.
Didn't they do it in the basement of that pizza parlor in DC?
I don't fucking know. I don't even know if it's real. But here's the thing.
The big owl thing.
You know, as conspiracy theory and stupid as that sounds, think about this though. If you're in mass crazy power,
you have to do things.
How do you get someone to have? How do you have ultimate control of another powerful person?
Yeah, you have to have shit.
You have to have not only shit, but you have to have shit beyond shit.
Great shit that people wouldn't believe.
There's no way. Yeah, there's no way. And in fact, if it's almost like if you showed it, they wouldn't believe you, but they'll do it anyway, and that'll be enough fear, right? Or like, man, I never got to watch it because people always told me not to. I'm gonna have to go back and watch it. But there was supposedly a Black Mirror episode, a Black Mirror episode where like this politician is like fucking a pig, and then it gets out or something like that, and because he has to go through like the secret rites of some secret fraternity or some shit, and then it gets out and it's like really gross and I'm like, well, that is sort of the artistic expression of reflecting a potential reality.
Well, I think that goes with the Freemason rituals and things of that nature. That's why it's so secret. All of those secret societies, I think that's the whole purpose.
To keep the cohesion.
Exactly. So we know we have each other's back.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to do some fucked up shit. And you're all going to witness it, to initiate.
Yeah. And
then once we've all gone through that, then we know we can trust you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know.
And so, I don't know. I think one of the questions becomes, when does it reach a head? Is there a political way to change this so that we can have a country that works for the people, an economy that works for the people? You know, like Dustin's a staunch capitalist, and in fact, I think he's libertarian to a large degree. Which, I mean, there's obvious flaws all over the place with libertarian philosophy, but whatever. He's probably got some kind of. I mean, he can say this too. I mean, give us more of a clear take on where you're coming from. But you know, he always mixes my critiques on capitalism with that of the free market, or wants to
I think we've
deflect to socialism or communism defense. I'm not defending communism. I'm not defending socialism, other than we already have it and that there are failures within it. But again, the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. It's not vigilance over ISIS. It's vigilance over power.
It's not vigilance of national defense.
Yes, it's vigilance of power, and that's corporate power, and that's government power. Government power, Dustin. It includes government power vigilance, but it also includes corporate power vigilance, because what is the corporate aim? The corporate aim is to manipulate government power to the ends of capitalists, right? It's not, again, my wicker basket's better than this other guy's wicker baskets should mean that I corner the market. It's when I start the fuckery of manipulating the government and using governmental powers to aid my exploitation, that becomes a problem. Or sucking on the teat, welfare. Right? Sucking on the teat, but that's through manipulation of the government that allows them to even grow the teat for them to suck.
But that's one of the big contradictions of the right, economic conservatives that I have issue with, is that they don't want to see a struggling family receive any government funds to pull them out of their situation. Yet they're completely fine with subsidizing corporations and, bailouts and things of that nature.
Well, because if you do that, then of course everyone else will get money. They'll grow more jobs.
But this is the same thing. This goes back
they won't put it in an offshore account.
But some of those
they won't take it away and invest in their own shares. They won't do that.
That need that government subsistence to pull them out of their rut are the same people that are voting for the right-wing politicians, because they don't want to be seen as a weak liberal.
Or who's going to get that money? It's the blacks and the illegals.
Exactly.
They're going to get that money. Fuck them.
Hell, all my family is whiter than white, and half of them are on government.
And they probably still vote Republican.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's because of their racial views.
Yeah. It's because
if I'm white, I deserve to get welfare or government subsistence, because I actually try to work and do other things. Oh, but if a Mexican or an African American's getting it, that's just because they're lazy. They don't want to try. They haven't made any effort. You know, well, how hypocritical is that?
Well, right. But I think it again goes back to that same mentality of, how do you manipulate a populace to work against their own interests? And again, it goes back to, hey, if you know who's on welfare, it's the blacks. Even though you're on welfare too. Who's Fox News going to show for public assistance? It's not a bunch of poor white people in Virginia. It's going to be a bunch of black people sitting on the corner,
and that's the manipulation,
doing some kind of shit that makes them scared, right? And they're like, well, now, or MS-13, or someone with tattoos that looks Hispanic that's opening a welfare check. We're like, well, fuck that.
Yeah, well, they do the same thing with a subject that I like to follow and study, and that's the Arab-Israeli conflict. They'll show Israeli Defense Force folks in the streets of occupied territories shooting rubber bullets at kids that are throwing rocks at them, and they'll say, "Oh, the Palestinian protest against." Well, no, they're protesting an occupying force being in their land. Not only in their land, like taking over their land since, the UN resolution in 1942, but in the little bit of land that they still have, they're coming in and harassing them and, trying to, instill their dominance on those people.
Right.
But
or burning down their farms.
But they'll say, Palestinian terrorists are throwing rocks at Israeli soldiers. No, those Israeli soldiers are in Palestinian homes, kicking their doors in for no fucking reason.
Well, to expand the settlement.
Yeah, exactly.
Really?
And then they
take over the land.
Build a settlement here. Then we'll have a highway that only the Israelis, and then they split.
Only people, basically you become in this open air prison.
Yeah. And all the settlers
access anything.
It's not optional for settlers to have weapons. It's mandatory.
Yeah. So, and then of course Palestinians aren't allowed to have weapons.
No, they're kicking their doors in, snatching them.
Right. Yeah. So Dustin put some commentary, a lot of words here. So let's take a look. Only the government is capable of quote manipulation. It is the same with corporations. I've been saying this for years that this cat Musk is a pretend genius. I don't know. Okay, so I'm sort of lost on that a little bit. Government capable of manipulation. I tend to disagree. Lobbyists manipulate the government, so it goes both ways. So I don't know what reality he lives in, but maybe you can clarify that, Dustin. It's when, and I think Musk is. I have my suspicions about Musk myself. I was a big fan of his. Lately, I think he might have gone
off the rails.
Yeah, I think that his top stopped spinning and he's not upright anymore. Dustin, when you act like mutual agreements between parties is manipulation because one is a corporation that you go off the rails. I believe in freedom for everyone. I didn't say that. You can have a corporation if you don't completely disconnect productivity with compensation.
Well, they should still be required to operate within the social contract of the people.
Sure, right.
Now, as long as they're operating within the social contract, that's fine. All corporations could do that. But it's when they're breaking that social contract of, I provide you jobs, I provide you a quality good and service in return to the consumers, and I promise to provide whatever else is required to maintain your job and to continue to provide that product and service. That is maintaining their social contract and not fucking the environment while they're doing it.
Right. Okay. And it seems pretty reasonable, but of course the aim of the capitalist structure, and this is the problem, Dustin, because he does it again. And Dustin, I have to call you out on it because again, you're fighting the windmill. So I keep telling you what the enemy is that I'm talking about, and you want to go look at the windmill and say, well, but look at this. No, come on, Dustin, please keep up. He says it's when you act like mutual agreements between parties is manipulation because one is a corporation. I never said that. I said when the corporation is manipulating society and manipulating the means and the contract. And the other thing is manipulating the labor market, because again, the thing that capitalist apologists never think about, because they've never actually read Marx, they've never actually read Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations, they've never read any other actual because I don't know if they're trying to be stupid and they don't do the effort and the research, and they don't try to understand, right? Especially they never read the Theory of Moral Sensibilities, the Theory of Moral Sensibilities by Adam Smith, that should be read along with Wealth of Nations, to tell you that the invisible hand is work because people's long-term self-interest is to promote a good society. He even says in Wealth of Nations that as soon as you let the merchant class get involved in government, they will manipulate it to their own means.
Benefits, yeah.
Right. Absolutely. He warns that back in the fucking 1800s or late 1700s or some shit. Right. He sees this early fucking on. So it's not like he never got warned hundreds of years ago. Right. And then comes Marx and says, whoa, there's some crazy shit happening. And look at these contradictions. These contradictions will eventually come to fruition if you don't check yourself. It's almost like if you're playing basketball and someone's like, dude, you could do so much better if you just do this one thing. Or like, man, if you keep doing that, you're going to break your ankle. Don't do that anymore. That's a weird way of doing a jump shot. And you're like, fuck off. Like, okay. And then eventually you break your ankle. Yeah. Right? It's like, no one's saying let's go build communism, right? Because they deflect. They go back and like this kind of stuff. Dustin, please stop doing this. I never said that. I'm saying you can have corporations all day. I don't give a shit. It's when they buy each other, create a monopoly, and then start doing crazy shit. Like, for instance, Google, Alphabet just got in trouble in the EU for basically forcing phone manufacturers to exclusively use their search engine and no one else, and all sorts of other shit, and their products and their apps and no one else. And they're like, no, you can't have this. It's an antitrust situation. You can't do that. It's anti-competitive. That's what I'm talking about. When you can corner the market and force people out because of your accumulation of capital, which was warned about by every fucking buddy except the people that were paid off by the Chicago school, that nobody realizes that, hey, the really rich people that hated Keynes because they wanted to extract more shit because they were fucking psychotic and they don't give a fuck, right? They said, you know what, let's fund these colleges. Go look it up if you don't believe me. Let's go fund these colleges. Let's go get Hayek to fucking say some stupid shit that even goes against his original road to serfdom and shit like that, and takes it to an extreme, right? And some of these other people like and Laffer and all these other morons that sell this bill of goods that's basically a bag of fucking magic beans, right? And over and over again, they want to sell those beans to the rest of the public, and the reality and their beans packet are two different things. Right. Okay, so maybe Dustin will clarify a little bit. Manipulating business people is not different from manipulating other people. Yeah, you're right. What manipulation are we talking about, though? Because the power already centers in capital, right? Because again, the universal capitalist equation, time equals money. So if you have capital, you have time. If you're a poor working class laborer and you don't have capital, you don't have time. Your kid's starving, your mortgage is due, you need food. You don't have time. You can be manipulated by capital because there's a power imbalance. But of course, apologists never want to think about that. They think it's manipulation of business, but they don't look at it like, hey, they can collude with each other. They can make gentlemen's agreements to fuck the laborers because I don't want to hemorrhage too many people. Tell you what, look, you don't raise your price. I won't raise my price. I don't want to get in a bidding war that will benefit the laborers because there's a market issue. Let's just, fuck them all. That way we don't get too hurt. But to Dustin, that's fine. But if our laborers come together and say, dude, they're fucking us. How about this? Next time they try to fuck us, we'll all go on strike and no one's answering their fucking phones. Fuck them. How about that? oh, fuck no, man, unions are bad and no, they're corrupted and oh, no, laborers shouldn't be able to do that. That's not fair. That's manipulation of business people.
Which goes back to and contradicts in this freedom for
everyone. He believes in freedom for everyone unless they're a laborer and subject to corporations, right?
Yeah.
And so it's, come on, man, come on. Let's have a real conversation.
So
that we both probably agree on a lot of shit. He doesn't like corporate crony capitalism. He doesn't like government interference and shit. I don't either. Remember, I always say it. What is the fucking thing I always say? The price of liberty is eternal vigilance. Vigilance over power, government and corp.
Well, you know, we were talking about the idolization of our military. I think there is a bit of an idolization of businessmen in this country as well.
Yeah, right.
You're only successful if you own your own business, if you become a businessman.
Right, right.
And
yeah, there's a fetishization of that as well.
I fucking hate that.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing wrong with you just working a job and being a laborer or being a scientist or coming up with great ideas while somebody else is paying you to do that. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
That's for each
in
their
fact,
own.
In fact, even Adam Smith says this, that the innovations within the corporate structure are typically from the laborers.
And but what happens though in the corporate structure? If you innovate something, they're going to make you sign a document saying they own
will
the
extract
patent
it from you.
and you know the rights to the
and they'll
patent
take the credit of
exactly.
It. Right. And a guy like Dustin will say, well, they deserve the credit because you wouldn't have even been working.
They gave you the
the opportunity,
the resources.
They gave you the opportunity to improve the business. Now, should you get some of the profit from that?
You absolutely should.
Oh, no. The agreement is you only get your wage.
Yeah. Well, so you a raise.
Maybe. And maybe we'll lay you off because now you're making too much noise.
Exactly.
You know, and he put in here, your definition of force, ... is different from mine. I don't know what he's talking about. Oh, no, what happened to our chat? Oh, there you go. That's BS, man. I'm all for unions, but the union should derive its power from the value of their labor, not some contrived power they get through manipulative legislation. I agree.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was a union employee for 6 years.
I agree. And so that's the thing. I think we agree on more, but instead of talking about it and saying, instead of having real conversation about the inherent contradictions and the manipulation of government and a manipulation of society done by mass capital, he would rather call me a communist or some shit and whatever. Now, and he was earlier. I mean, now he's saying that's BS, but I mean, I was in a conversation with him and his wife before on Facebook, and they were poo-pooing labor as if unions, as if they were a parasite on society, and they were running rampant. I'm like, dude, are you fucking kidding me? No. What percentage of the labor force is unionized?
I would say it's less than 5. Yeah,
it's a 6.5%.
Other than government.
Yeah, other than government, 6.5%. So to tell me that unions are prevalent when almost 94%, almost the entirety of the labor force is non-unionized, right? And then he's arguing now and he's telling me it's BS. But Dustin, bless your heart. Thank you so much for being on the show. And for calling me out for saying that's BS, because I am very glad that you believe in unions, because that is the only fair way to balance the power between capitalism and between labor. And if the capitalists would respect that, and there was a connection between productivity and compensation, which got derailed in the late 70s, and then like the whole neoliberal policy of commodification of human beings, instead of sharing what was produced with the people that produced it, the profits that were produced, like we did in the past, right? We say, no, well, I could extract more from this other place. So either they have to bend the knee and let us extract, or we're going to move this shit to fucking Thailand.
And they have no income.
Where they have no income, and if they don't want to do it, we'll overthrow their leadership anyway.
Yeah.
And we've done it in the past. So if we think it's a made up shit, guess what? You know, I have a whole fucking 5 pages of like the hundreds of U.S. interventions from the 1800s to 2004 provided by the Australian military to show every fucking place we've dumped our military to manipulate people around the globe, either for good or for bad. You know what I mean? And just you can't. It's all part of the system. It's all part of the system.
Yeah. It's
the reason we're in Iraq.
Industrial
why were we even there? It wasn't because to free the people from Saddam. No one gives a fuck. We put shittier. In fact, we probably helped Saddam get there. You know, in fact, he was an ally to us for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And we turned our back on him. And supposedly the story goes, before he invaded Kuwait, he was in a meeting with Bush Sr. And he said, hey, look, you know, I need this port in Kuwait. You know, there was once it was all part of one country, sort of, and, you know, I need to work this out or some shit.
That's still debatable.
Sure, but at the end of the day, he said, do you give a fuck if you do care if I do this?
That's an Arab.
Yeah, the Arab issues are Arab things. Let's just, you know, as long as you comply with our shit, we're cool.
Yeah, and it was an argument over Kuwait and the rest of, you know, OPEC not bringing the price of oil down so he could get back into the market and be competitive, because he had just spent all of his fucking money fighting a war against Iran that we helped
facilitate. That we helped subsidize.
So he was broke. The people were starving. He was trying to do something for his country. You know, I'm sure he was going to take his piece off the top, but anyway, he was trying to make Iraq competitive in the oil market again. And the only way he could do it was to put fear into OPEC. And if he invaded Kuwait, maybe they would, you know, cooperate, bring the price down, let me get back in the market.
Well, and now I'm not attacking Kuwait. I'm telling you, the reason I'm bringing up the story is to tell you the clandestine background shit that leads to these things. So when Bush says Arabic issues are for Arabs, we don't stick our nose. And then he's like, oh, well, and that sort of means green light to me. I'm asking my superior, basically, America, because if you don't listen to them, they'll beat you up.
Or British Petroleum, I think.
Or BP, or whoever, right? This power that's greater than him. And they say, yeah, don't worry about it. We don't care. And then he does it, and it's like, yeah, well, look at this.
Yeah.
And that is an example, again, of the kind of crazy shit that we do in the interest of
Mohammed
the
corporate and Iran. And actually, that was one of the big things that happened in the Middle East that made all Middle Eastern leaders not trust the West. You know, Mohammed Mossadegh was the democratically elected president of Iran in the early 50s. Was, you know, promoting Western culture, Western education. Women were wearing miniskirts in the streets of Tehran. The only thing he did was say, all right, now it's time for these foreign oil companies to get out of our oil fields because we're nationalizing those. That is Iranian oil. Then what the fuck happened? CIA and the British intelligence went in there, overthrew him, put the Shah in, who was another Saddam Hussein.
Dictator,
we never talk about, because
fascist dictator.
Yeah, what's the difference between that guy and that guy? Well, I think it was Johnson's defense, whatever the fuck you call him,
Secretary of Defense.
Secretary of Defense. I said, well, that guy's our son of a bitch, and that son of a bitch is theirs. You know, so we just replaced one son of a bitch with another one.
Yeah,
it just happens to be that we support that one. So the Shah goes in, he skims all of the oil revenues off the top, lets Western companies come in and pump all of Iran's oil, while he's just building palaces and starving the people. So, of course, they wanted something drastically different. So what did they go to? Islamofascists and Ayatollah Khomeini. You know? So, and
it's a pendulum swing, too, to some degree.
Well, it's all connected, though, because Khomeini was in Najaf in southern Iraq, and Karbala, which is the holy sites in the Shia religion, which are Iranians. Persians are Shia Muslim. So that whole time, Saddam had him there, and he knew what kind of trouble he was trying to cause down there. He was trying to have Saddam overthrown, a Shia rebellion, a Shia uprising. So whenever the Shah came in, he booted him out. He sent him to France. He's like, get the fuck out of my country. Well, and then whenever he come back and he took over Iran, Saddam knew what he was dealing with. He knew Khomeini. And he was more than willing to take up that fight, and we knew it, so we exploited him. And over 1 million lives were lost in 10 years in that war.
And
we give a fuck.
Right. I mean, and the American people aren't really privy to all the details during the contemporary time either.
No.
Just like now, we're not privy to those details. And to me, if we're not privy to details, we shouldn't necessarily be doing major work like this. I mean, of course, there's national security and this and that, but we also know that the government lies to us constantly.
Yeah.
So we should be able to look at them with a skeptical eye and say, no,
right,
no, let's not do this. We're tired of it.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't justify how my freedom is located in the Middle East, then get the fuck out.
Yeah.
They're sovereign nations. If they want to beat each other up, go do it. If it starts escalating outside, and like, why can't we just look at it like as if we were the true peacekeepers to a degree that we claim to be, and the champions of righteousness and democracy?
Well, how can you call yourself a peacekeeper when you go in with guns?
Well, you can't. And like, why can't we? Isn't there a possible way that we could do that though?
Oh, absolutely could. But that would require us to look weak and timid, and to be able to admit that we've done wrong.
Yeah, no, but who? Look at all the great leaders that we've ever had in history that we look up to. They're not these like
warmongers,
meathead alpha males.
No.
They are intellectuals. They are people of the people, right? They are. Yeah, I mean, they're just. Like there's this ethos of I'm going back to like the stoic leader, like the stoic military man that's like, I'm just got my weapon and I have intense responsibility because of my power and I'm fighting for your freedom. Don't thank me. I do it for duty and honor.
But please thank me.
But you better fucking say thanks for my service, and you better fucking wear a camouflage, and if it's Veterans Day, and you better fucking salute those F-16s as they're flying. You better fucking buy those camo Coke cans. You know, I remember I was working at this car dealership, and the HR lady was talking about some shit, and she made a remark about health insurance. And she was like, how can you believe that some people are trying to make it free to everybody? Like, we all want to pay for it or something. And like, I don't want to pay for everybody else's stuff or something. And I was like, man, well, some of us don't want to pay for failed weapons systems and constantly subsidize the military. And she's like, that's the price for freedom. And I just laughed in her face. And she didn't really like that.
No, the price for freedom would be for you to pay for my health care.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be the price.
No, it's better for us to die on the streets while we pay the weapons contractors, you know, and just so they can have bullshit jobs in your district.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's better. That's much more moral.
And you know what we pay in premiums and co-pays and all of that far exceeds what it would take for us to just pay a little bit of taxes to collectively provide a government option for all citizens.
Right. But they know that they can't continue to extract, and the lobbyists are paying the politicians.
Because if you're a true capitalist and you believe in competition and the free market, like Bernie said, all I'm saying is let the government be part of that competition. Let's provide a free service, and let's see where the people go.
Yeah.
Are they going to get raped by insurance companies?
I mean, we can see that with schools right now. Like, there's public school and there's private school. Maybe you want your kids to learn a special shit and it's not available in the public school. Or maybe you want them to learn religious stuff and we're refusing because we're a secular society per the Constitution that we don't want religion in school, in the public school. Hey, go ahead, pay for it, right? There's a public option, there's a private option. There could we do the same with healthcare, right? I dare we say we shouldn't do the same with national defense and firefighters and police.
Well, we already have,
but we already do. We do.
Z Corporation.
Exactly.
I mean, they're mercenaries for hire.
And who are they beholden to? Right, the corporation. Exactly. And we have toll roads. We have private roads. We have these things that exist as well. So there's options that are available, and to have a public option is simply saying, look, I don't want to play this game. I want to collectively put and look, I'm not even opposed to an opt-in to say I specifically want a chunk of my taxes not to go to defense and go to this, right? And I want to sign in to the public option. And if you don't want to sign in and you don't want your taxes, then you don't get to fucking do it. It's a little red hen story. If you don't want to grow the wheat, thresh the wheat, and make the dough, then don't fucking come to me when the bread is smelling good in the house.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so maybe you and I and all the other people in America want to pool it, and then Dustin and his buddies want to go and do the private shit. Okay, fine. You don't want your taxes to go to this, then you don't get the government services that we get. Fine. Let's opt it in.
Yeah.
Then you can go do your own shit. That's fine. And maybe, you know, I'm going to pull away something from somewhere else. And you could argue, well, now you're pulling away from our national defense. But at the same time, fraud, waste, and abuse only applies when they're looking for fraud, waste, and abuse. It only applies to servicemen and women. It doesn't apply to contractors and politicians. Exactly. You know,
they're not held to the convention. They're not held to the laws of land of warfare.
In the one, and you know, this is going long, so I'm going to go ahead and try to wrap this up a little bit. But one thing that it always makes me wonder is this another contradiction or something that why is it that we look at servicemen and women or some segments of the society, also including they include police in this too, that their mindset is their idealized mindset is that there is this thing where they are not like anyone else. They are bound to duty and honor and their job or whatever their role or something. But if you talk about teachers, there's no way a teacher is bound to duty, honor, and their role or their students or their work. They're all just leeches, right? Or there's no agency, the EPA. They don't give a fuck about the environment. Like as if the concept or what the intent doesn't attract those type of people.
Well, if we paid teachers better, we educated them better, we trained them better, we wouldn't need so many police.
Sure, right.
You know,
but that goes back to how much effort are you willing to look past the superficial, right? And if you're not willing to look at root causes, you will never see.
Okay, that's the whole hypothesis of this whole conversation is nobody looks at root causes. Mm-hmm. They just see correlation. They don't worry about causality.
Well, and part of that's the media. Because the media feeds them this veneer, and they recite that over and over.
But we as people should have responsibility to ourselves.
Right. Yes,
to educate ourselves to find the truth, to seek the truth. Effort. I know, and that's what I'm saying. So there is 40% of stupid people out there, because that's how many people still support Trump.
Do you think 40%?
Well,
are there
the polls I see?
Polls?
Well,
I mean, I don't believe them. They were wrong about Hillary. They were wrong about all sorts of
Donald Trump polls higher than Abraham Lincoln, and Abraham Lincoln was never polled. So
never polled and presided over a civil war. Yeah. So obviously he was not popular with half of the country by default.
Exactly.
Right. So, and even the North, I'm pretty sure during the contemporary period of Lincoln, he wasn't necessarily popular. Now he had great speeches and he said great things, great man. Sure. But in the time, I'm pretty sure, and I'm not a Lincoln historian, so maybe we got to bust out the O'Reilly books or something.
You know, he's back on television now. He's on that conservative news channel, Newsmax. They give him his own nightly show.
I mean,
I thought he was gone forever, but
that's the thing. It's just like, you know, I'm not going to get into this whole thing, but there's this notion that that's okay, despite all this shit that he did. That's fine. It's almost like he's one of us. It's fine. Yeah. That's okay to do shitty things to women. You're a man. You're a man. You're a powerful man.
I've heard one.
We're in a patriarchy. Yeah, I would want him to do that to me.
I have to tell exactly. I have to tell you this disgusting story before we shut this down. My wife works at a hospital. She works with a lot of ladies, and they were telling her that, of course, if a guy with that kind of money came up to me and grabbed me, I would be, honored. I would be, thinking, hey, maybe I'm worth something to him. And I'm thinking, no, you're worth nothing to yourself if you think that.
Wow. So what stopped them from being a whore earlier?
Exactly. I don't know.
They must not. The market would not return.
Exactly.
I guess that's what it really means.
Yeah.
But it sort of goes to I have this theory. I call it the female fulcrum. I don't know. I made it up, and I'm going to stick with it just because it sounds decent. Female fulcrum, and what that means is the female is in a way possible to be the pivot of society, to shift society on their terms. Mm-hmm. And I think because of the patriarchy that existed so long, and then we're evolving out of that. That is because we're looking at a more equal society. Lothar can't beat up Mary and take, or Jane or whatever, and take her to the cave anymore, the way that we used to, I guess, or the way that animals do in certain societies of animals. And so we're looking at a situation where I think women aren't, a lot of men want to keep women down because they couldn't imagine the idea of women coming into their own and having that control. And like I said, I don't want to dig too deep, but like the incel grievance, heard about the incel, the involuntary celibates. These guys that basically can't get laid, and they blame society for that. Jesus. Have you heard of Jordan Peterson before? He's this guy that he's a Canadian professor, psychology professor, and he made a big stink about. I don't agree with the Canadian law about compelling people to say, specific pronouns. Per se, if it's government edict and there's liability tied to it from the government, dangerous. To me, that's dangerous. And so I don't agree with that. But at the same time, I don't agree with a lot of his points. And so he was a champion.
That's the guy you were telling me about
that. And he wants to do some kind of, I don't know how he exactly plans to enforce this, but basically more or less a forced monogamy situation, because he feels that will allow more chances for more men to get laid and fulfill their duty as men in the society, biological duty as men in society. Because if you're only with one woman and that's it, then you can't be with multiple women, which will free up those women out of desperation to come to these, people that no women want to fuck. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? But then he constantly rails against leftist policy because they want equality of outcome. And that's when the shit hits the fan. I'm like, who the fuck's talking about equality of outcome? We're just saying labor rights compared to what capitalists are doing. But he's conflating it. But I'm like, wait a minute, you just said that you want to guarantee equality of outcome in fucking, though. Yeah. So it's okay to subjugate women to the needs of men, right? It's almost like you watch 300, movie 300, right? The old men that they have the needs of men. Let's take our finest young women and throw them at the mountain, and there will be that's like Jordan Peterson's dream or some shit. Let's take the nymphs and our hottest of the hot adolescents and let them go get deflowered by the crazy mages up on high, so that they can tell us the future. That sounds like about right, because how else would they have fulfilled the needs of men if they were up in the mountain? So I think it's only fair that we do that, because equality of outcome is dangerous if it's in the economy, but if it has to do with, because he sounds like Kermit the Frog, if it has to do with having sex and whether or not the male is able to fulfill their duties as a society, well, that's different. Like, what the fuck?
Just jerk off.
Well, and even then, and so what that did for me is it really opened my eyes to the power, and I don't want to necessarily cause a hashtag power of the pussy or pussy power, but in a way, it's like, so imagine if all women decided, hey, if your company is psychopathically doing psycho shit, I don't want to have to do anything with you as a male or as a female. So let's say, was it Amazon? No, not Amazon. Who was it? Yahoo had the female
Yahoo.
CEO, and there's some crazy shit going on. I don't know if she was doing psycho shit, but it was something. I don't know. Let's just pretend she was doing psycho shit. Then the females within society should ostracize her and say, look, you aren't cool with us. So all the shit that why would she want to reach those heights? And if women in general, so the wives of powerful men, the powerful women that are in whatever positions of power, they decide no more psychopathy. No, and I'm not going to honor that. And I'm not going to be around those people.
Mm-hmm.
They could change society. Because just ask anybody.
Stop fucking those psychopaths.
That too. And so just ask anybody, can a woman convince you? Now men can do it too, but a lot of times it's by force. And it's not necessarily by this other sort of soft coercion.
Yeah.
And I think that, hey, soft coercion that's their choice at this point. Yeah. If they want to make a choice and they mentally control that choice, and that's what delineates us, women and men, to a large extent, right? We've always, if you want to counter it, then fine. But we already know that men are typically more physically driven or visually driven or whatever, driven in a more mechanical way, as opposed to an emotional and thoughtful or mental way. Right. But anyway, that's a whole other concept. But yeah, I want to thank Dustin, by the way, for all of the intense and very good critiques. It gives us a lot to go off of, and you got some good points. And I think we agree on a lot more. And now that we're chipping the surface of what we're really talking about and having these dialogues, you're understanding when I critique capitalism, I'm not saying we shouldn't have free exchange. No, we should all day. It's when the manipulation of society occurs through mass accumulations of capital that it creates a gravitational pull that people can't escape. That's what I'm saying. And so when that starts to occur, you become, it's like a black hole. And as more and more accumulated capital and more corporations amass together and monopolize, it becomes a black hole. And soon the gravitational pull is so powerful, light can't escape. And next thing you know, you're in a corporal fascist dictatorship and every fucking thing is monitored. And guess what? It becomes 1984 because what the fuck am I looking at? A camera. And how many cameras are around every fucking place? And if you don't pledge allegiance to Oceania, you're dying. You know what I mean? If you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing at that moment, you're dying. So do we want that? Do we want the Ministry of Truth to manipulate the truth? Do we want the Ministry of Health to kill our population? The Ministry of Peace to wage war? Because we're getting there. And all I'm doing, and I'm sure Sean wants to do this, warn us all that we're about to enter that fucking realm. So,
one human people.
One human people. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. If you're tuning in live, we got one more person. I think it might be Dustin. I don't know. Dustin, thank you so much for participating. Mark, thank you so much. Louis V.
Somebody sent you something on Facebook.
And someone sent something on Facebook. I don't know. That's why you should definitely be watching and liking and subscribing to the YouTube channel, because sometimes Facebook goes out. I think my phone died, and so Facebook didn't get to watch most of this episode. But thanks for joining the Boyd, and thank you, Sean. Excellent conversation. And we'll have you on again, of course, all the time, whenever you want. So again, this is James signing out. Peace out, y'all.
Play a bomb that's less than stupid. Play a bomb, play a bomb that's play a bomb that's less than stupid. Play a bomb that's less than stupid. Play a bomb that's less than stupid. Let's